2. As always, we've got a big agenda. We appreciate all of you being here to help us and tuning in. We'll turn the time over to Patty Norman first for our recognition.
Yes, thank you. And this is such a fun one to recognize. I get to show you a visual chart as well. So let's go ahead and start it out, which is the Utah State Board of Education is committed to the vision of upon completion, all Utah students are prepared to succeed and lead by having the knowledge and skills to learn, engage civically, and lead meaningful lives. In order to accomplish these goals, staff of the board are engaged in supporting the everyday work to achieve this goal and assisting the board to create equitable conditions for student success, advocating for necessary resources, developing policy, and providing effective support and oversight. This month, we're going to highlight two different areas, and the first of this was during the pandemic, EBT. So if I can have Kathleen Britton, Tammy Walker, Kim Buser, Chris Brune, Nathan Geldy, I'm saying I'm wrong. Is that correct? Gailey? And Tierra Rodo. Kathleen, did I say those right? If not, correct me.
I think so. I have lost my voice. I've been very sick. So I'm going to pass it over to Kim Loveland, who can talk, and because I can't talk very well right now.
They were said correctly? And I see them on. Perfect. All right. And a little bit of background. This is nice for the board to hear some of these results that kind of went through and you passed and played a part in as well. But this is how staff worked within those guardrails. So the pandemic electronic benefit transfer, which has been called the PEBT, is part of the U.S. government response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the Families First Coronavirus Response Act of 2020, as amended by the Continuing Appropriations Act of 21 and other extensions acts. So, and is also part of the American Rescue Plan of 2021. All of this combined together provides the Secretary of Agriculture the authority to approve state agency plans to administer the PEBT. So the Utah State Board of Education Child Nutrition Program and Utah Department of Workforce Services have implemented this program for the school years 2019-20, 2021-20, and the summer of 21, 21-22, and the summer of 22. So through PEBT, and I'm going to put this little screen up for you so that you can see these numbers because they, oh, can I get the screen sharing, Andrea?
Alex will need to do that. I'm just a co-host. Alex, can you make sure that every staff member is able to share their screen and the board members, please?
Yep, sure thing.
Thank you.
Perfect. So let me get in here and screen share this. So what you're going to be looking at, let me know if you can see it. Can you see that screen of the chart? So through EBT, eligible school children receive temporary emergency nutrition benefits loaded on EBT cards that are used to purchase food. Children who have received free or reduced price meals under the National School Lunch Act, if their schools were not closed or operating with reduced hours or attendance or at least 5 consecutive days, are eligible to receive PEBT benefits. PEBT also provides benefits to younger children in households participating in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program that many of you have heard referred to as SNAP, whose covered childcare facility is closed or operating with reduced hours of attendance, or who live in the area of schools that are closed or operating within reduced hours or attendance. That was a lot. If you remember that rush, that ability to, we need to feed our kids and make sure that we're providing for those needs. If you look over at the graph, it's the number of students and benefits amount issued to households paid through August 2022 for 21-22 DWS 926-22. And this does not include issuances in September and October of 2022. And so I don't know, Kim, if you want to just give a really brief explanation of this chart for our board members.
Yeah, so in conjunction with DWS, as was mentioned, we worked with the LEAs to obtain information on free and reduced eligible students that qualified for these benefits. So the top SNAP household students, those students were issued over $1 million in benefits. So those households were already participating in the SNAP program, and this is in addition to those SNAP benefits that those households are getting. And then they did a separate issuance for non-SNAP non-SNAP household students, which was almost $2 million. And then the child under 6, DWS worked on that independently. We provide them school information, and that was just $9,000 for school year benefits. And those students received $7.10 per day that they were absent due to COVID or due to a school closure due to COVID. So the totals for the school year benefits is right around $3 million. Now the summer benefits, those students had to be free or reduced price eligible and enrolled in a National School Lunch Program school in May. And so we got that data from our schools. And then that total was almost $400 per student. It was a one lump sum for those summer months to be covered. And as the end of October approached, DWS had issued out $66 million in benefits for that summer period.
Thank you. And if any of you as board members have additional questions, you can follow up with Kim and her team and DWS. And can we just get all of those that were invited to share in this huge recognition? Can we have you wave so we see who you are again? Big thank you to you and to all that you have done in this area. So our second team that we are going to be recognizing is I'll get this on here. We are going to be recognizing the Early College Dashboard. And on this, we can have Nathan Ock and David McKay. And Nathan, who else are we recognizing today? Nathan and David?
Stephanie Sue and Christy Schreck too.
Thank you. And if we can have all four of you turn your cameras on and let our board members know who you are. Perfect. So the background on this, it's kind of cool. Well, they're all cool. That's why they're here today. The Early College Dashboard originally was envisioned in 2018, and it has reached its premiere. Over the past couple of years, the dashboard has been developed to support LEAs in having access to localized data to empower communities to set local goals and make local decisions. It was built to be coherent with the reporting and application process that the board added to Rule 277701 in 2019. The Early College team has worked hard to create an intentional and asset-based process of continuous improvement related to the grants that this board rule touches, which includes AP, or Advanced Placement, IB, International Baccalaureate, and CE, Concurrent Enrollment, and GT, Gifted and Talented. The tool provides visualizations that allow LEAs to see their progress in early college programs combined, as well as in each individual program mentioned previously. And it provides statewide, LEA-wide, and even school-specific data. In addition to the yearly grant process, the Early College team has also leveraged the data from the dashboard to establish promising practices and high-flying LEAs across the state in early college, and having them share their work with the statewide community and leading discussions in breakout rooms. Going forward, we look forward to adding further visualizations related to the 3 other success criteria beyond recruitment, not already visualized, including retention, middle school pipeline, and course efficacy, and providing high flyer lists for each of those criteria, commending the LEAs leading the way in those metrics. The dashboard has empowered LEAs to make data-informed decisions about the efficacy of their decision-making on a yearly timescale, while ensuring that those with the most amplified voice in the community are those that have made the most progress. As one of our LEAs recently wrote us, the EC dashboard rocks and is so helpful in preparing our board reports. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'd like to thank David McKay, Stephanie Sue, Christy Schreck, and Nathan Ock for their collaboration on this project, and their expertise was an integral component in creating the resource for the field. And we're going to give Nate just 1 or 2 minutes to show you what that looks like so that you can see the success.
Thanks, Patty. Everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. So like Patty said, this dashboard exists kind of at the intersection of the constraints that the board rule puts in play for ensuring everyone's making progress connected to their early college community, both with regards to overall growing that overall community, and that the growth is representative of what the makeup of that student community. And so as Patty also mentioned, there's kind of different grain sizes available. This first one that you see here is statewide data. And at the top, you can see that there is the opportunity to alter the date that you're looking at, and that's going to be consistent across all the dashboards that David and Stephanie helped us build. And so this first one is demonstrating early college numbers. So you can see the number of students across the state that are participating in advanced placement courses, IB or International Baccalaureate courses, and concurrent enrollment courses. And then you also get a picture for what the percentage participation of each of the student groups along the bottom is. And so the opportunities for improving some student groups' participation exists within the different colored areas. We'd love to see these two bars, for example, in students who are economically disadvantaged, matching participation levels of students who are not economically disadvantaged. So when we go to the LEA dashboard, which can be navigated two along the bottom, we have a parallel view, but now at the top left-hand corner, you can also choose between different LEAs. So right now we have Cache District selected, and we can see the number of students in Cache District that are participating in AP and CE. They don't have an IB program, so you see there's no students there. And then you also get a kind of smaller grain size view of the same data, representation levels for different student groups across that community. And so you can dig into this data one step further by choosing the LEA details page. And so now we're looking at Ogden City School District, and along the top we have two additional choices. So we have student group. We can look at the participation levels of different student groups in isolation, and we can also choose program. So CE, AP, or IB at the right. And in addition to bar graphs that kind of give a picture for the current representation levels of students, we also have trends over time. And so what you can see is these orange lines are Ogden City School District's participation of the two groups in question, in this case, students economically disadvantaged and students not economically disadvantaged. And that's comparative to the state level. So we can see that Ogden, by and large, has students participating in what we have chosen right now, CE, at rates that are higher than the state average. In fact, this year, their strategies for incorporating their students experiencing economic disadvantage in concurrent enrollment were so successful that their students experiencing economic disadvantage actually participate at rates higher than the average of students that are not economically disadvantaged from across the rest of the state. So we have that comparative idea to state levels as well as trend levels. And then again, you can see the kind of coherence between the visualizations that Dave and Stephanie helped us build from the LEA page to this page. This is now the school page. So we can go school year, LEA name, and now school name. And we get the same data, number of students participating in AP and CE, student participation across those groups. And finally, we get the LEA details page. So we can choose, say, socioeconomic status, we can choose different schools. And then in this case, we have school level compared to LEA levels. And the power of these trends lines and the grain size going down to the school level, we just had a meeting this week where LEAs from across the state, including Alpine and New Ames, including Cache District and Box Elder, including Granite, that are using this dashboard locally to have conversations about what strategies are working within their LEAs, and then sharing it across those experiences based on the schools that are having the most success in moving the dial for overall and or individual student groups. And so we are really pleased to see that this LEA dashboard that grew out of LEA needs is finding its way into the decision-making process for communities across the state. So thanks so much for the opportunity to share this work with you. And again, a big thanks to our IT department. David and Stephanie have been so integral. Kristen Campbell was another one in the data space that was so helpful in helping us put together these visualizations. And it's a constant work in progress. So we look forward to continuing to update it and evolve it in the future.
Thanks, Nathan. And if we could have everyone wave one more time, and I know we have hands, I'm going to leave that up to the prerogative of the chair to be calling on folks, or if it should be done after, but let's go ahead and give them a hand for the work that they've done. And I wanted to also let everyone recognize the fact that our CNP team They were working within their goal. And then also this early college dashboard is a part of that personalized learning goal with strategy 4B, 4C, and 4D. So 4B, if we look at how directly this impacts the work of the board and supporting the work that all of you do, strategy 4B is support LEAs in providing a personalized learning plan, increase access to qualified school personnel to design personalized learning plans. And then the other one is promote new school system models for personalized learning. So as you can see, having this level of granularity with being able to then meet those needs and look at what is happening across the state, district, and then also at the school level is helping to meet that goal that the board has set forth. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chair Hansen and let you decide on questions or not. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Patty. We will take a couple of brief questions, but we do need to move forward into our agenda, so be mindful of the time. Go ahead, Laura, please. And Jenny, you're up next.
Yeah, Chair Hansen, I just wondered if Nathan could tell us where on our website we could find that quickly, because I popped over there and I couldn't find this.
Okay.
Yeah, again, Nathan Ock, STEM coordinator and early college specialist, Utah State Board of Education. Thanks for pointing out the fact that I forgot to mention. This dashboard is a login only for the granularity that I was showing you. However, there is a masked version that goes to the LEA level on the data gateway page. And so if you navigate to the data gateway page on the left-hand side, there's a number of dashboards. One of those choices is early college. And so we have it to the kind of LEA visualization level.
And
Chair,
it looks
can we
like
have the
Darren
opportunity to log
just
into
put it-
this?
I'm sorry, we got people talking over each other. Just 1 second. Patty, was that you that came in?
Yeah, I was saying Darren Nelson put that information, that link in the chat.
Okay, there you go, Laura. Looks like the data gateway is the place to find this. Okay, go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, I guess I had 2 questions. Is there any way we could look at N sizes on these things when you're talking some districts, and I guess maybe that is something a district can get to? I'm not sure, but when you're looking at certain populations, there may only be 1% within a whole school. And so 2 students could skyrocket it, or 2 students could make it look like it's extra low. So to me, it's knowing how to read the data too. And then I do have another question. What is the appropriate or the right number of students? I don't know if that's even right statistically in an AP class, in an AP program in schools. And I guess I'm wondering, because if we have proficiency rates at 47, let's say, but we have, 70% of our kids in AP classes, I'm just saying, where's the balance in this, right? The object isn't necessarily to get everybody in AP classes. The object is to have a well-educated student, right? That can go on to, so I'm just trying to, where is that number balance or that percent balance? And are we artificially trying to push students into something that they can't? Does that make sense? Or even the early college where they're not really ready for that, but we want to get the numbers.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Let's let Nate address that. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Hansen. So Board Member Earl, if I can address the first one, the first question initially. There are N sizes for all of the visualizations available in the detailed dashboards down at the bottom right. And that's a conversation that we kind of honor in our application process for concurrent enrollment and AP and IB funds as well. That right now there is a kind of expectation that they set a percentage change goal, but we also try to empower the LEAs that are smaller, where exactly what you're saying, like N size values can swing their percentages 10 or 20% with just a few students. So a lot of times when they set their goals, as opposed to setting a percentage goal, they'll set a number of students goal, or in some cases, even like a school-wide, like multiple student group goal, depending. So they have some flexibility with regards to their goal setting that covers both percentage numbers as well as magnitude of students' numbers. And to the second point, it is absolutely a great point. It's one that we talk about across the entire community. The goal isn't to get as many students in as many early college courses as possible. Right now, the community has been supportive of the idea that it benefits every student to have an early college experience at some point in their high school career. So that could be AP, that could be concurrent enrollment. And there are circumstances in which students will take more than one of those, but we've left it up to the communities to decide for themselves what, you'll see some communities that have a lot of AP courses and less concurrent enrollment. And then you also see other communities that are in a different direction. Then you'll see IB communities that's their kind of primary outlet or opportunity for students within the early college space. So I think I and the entire early college community agrees that the goal is not to get as many students as possible in these courses. And right now, I think something that we're all kind of focused on is at opportunities for every student to have at least one experience during their high school career.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. We appreciate both teams. The CMP team for responding so quickly during the pandemic and making sure our kids didn't go hungry, and the early college dashboard team. I think it's difficult for us to improve if we can't measure, and these kind of measurements really give us the data that we need to go in and figure out what's working, what's not working, and how we can do things better. So thank you for the work you guys are doing behind the scenes. We just see these things pop up in statistics or on the website, and don't really recognize all the time all that goes on in the background. We sure appreciate you. I think that we do have a few people signed up for public comment. And Andrea, could you introduce the folks we have this morning and help us through that public comment period?
Sure. We're happy to have 3 different individuals that would like to make public comment during our committee meeting today. We'll first turn the time over to Lorianne Thorpe and Deandra Brown, who will be speaking about the Prevent Child Abuse Utah curriculum. And you will have 2 minutes, and you'll see the timer there on the screen. If you'll unmute and also start your video, we would appreciate it.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Chair Hansen. I'm Lorianne Thorpe, Director of Prevent Child Abuse Utah. We are a 40-year Utah nonprofit. Our curriculum, adjusted to include human trafficking, is before you for approval today. We already have an approved child abuse curriculum we teach in schools. This is an updated version and now includes content on human trafficking. I'm here to ask for your support. I'm here to ask you to help us help children. Help the 4th grade girl who 2 months ago saw the Prevent Child Abuse Utah was coming to her class on the calendar. And she promised herself that this time she would tell. Help a 3rd grade girl who's all grown up now, whose letter is included in your board documents, who heard our curriculum and realized she was being abused and decided to tell and got help. Help the 5th grade boy who, listening to the portion of the curriculum about physical abuse, raised his hand and said, "But it's okay if you were really bad though, or if you don't obey, right?" Help children like Deandra, who you'll hear from, to recognize, resist, and report child abuse and trafficking. Please vote to support Prevent Child Abuse Utah's curriculum. Thank you. Deandra.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deandra Brown. I am a member of the musical ensemble group, the Five Browns. And I have toured with my brothers and sisters on 5 pianos for, I think, almost 17 years now. I've crossed paths with some of you over the years as I've worked to protect children from abuse. Child abuse prevention is very, very close to my heart, and I was a victim of sexual abuse as a child, so I'm incredibly passionate about doing all that we can to make sure that kids are better protected from abuse. So Prevent Child Abuse Utah has been an organization that has done incredible work over the past over 40 years, I think, and they are trusted, they're evidence-based curriculum, and their mission really is to try to help communities, to help parents and teachers understand what abuse can lead to, what it looks like, and to help those within the community to feel empowered to better protect children and to know what to look for. So I'm quite passionate about the need for this prevention education that now includes trafficking to continue to be supported by the board. It's an incredible opportunity for the state of Utah and all of you as members of the board to continue to better have a community that better supports our children and protects them from abuse by giving them vital tools to the parents and teachers around them to make sure that we put abuse prevention at the top of our initiatives as a state. So I appreciate your time and your efforts in this area and all that you do. And I look forward to many more interactions as we work towards these endeavors.
Thank you so much for your time. Our next public comment will be given by Lydia Nuttall, and we'll have her unmute, please, and turn on her camera, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm not seeing me, so hopefully you're seeing me on your end.
Okay, I can see you now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Lydia Nuttall. I live in Morgan County School District. I have a son who graduated years ago and a daughter who's graduating this year. For some of my background, I'm going to be I want to address my perspective, my comments on the proposed changes to the social studies 6th grade curriculum, strands 1 and 2. For 4 years, between 2012 and 2016, I attended every State Board of Education Standards and Assessment Committee meeting and worked with members of the state office as well as some board members to develop a curriculum that would teach, that teachers could teach K through 12 civic and character education using real stories of real people in our American history that exemplify courage, leadership, responsibility, work, etc., as well as the foundations of how we got our government. Now this year, I've been interviewing immigrants from all over the world who have come to America, and I asked them 3 questions. Why did you come? Did you find what you're looking for? And if you had a 1-minute message to Americans today, what would it be? Hands down, the top reasons why they have all come here, many at great personal sacrifice, is because they want to live in liberty, they want to experience self-government, and they want to have the ability to prosper. And all 3 of these, the liberty, the self-governance, and prosperity, are addressed in these new proposed standards to be included with the 6th grade social studies curriculum in strands 1 through 4. They're beautifully woven, I'll add. That's what I feel about them. And my question is, how do we expect our youth to value liberty here in America, to love self-government and the ability to prosper if we do not include these in the new standards? And how do we even expect them to even preserve liberty and the ability to self-govern and for everyone to have the opportunity to prosper if, again, we don't put these proposed changes in the curriculum? So thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Our final public comment today will be given by Brooke Johnson. If she will unmute and turn on her camera, and you'll have 2 minutes. Brooke, are you there? I have a guest that is just named Johnson. I'm not sure if that's you, but I still show that you're muted. If you could unmute.
She's trying to unmute, Andrea.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah.
Andrea, if that doesn't look like it's going to happen right now, we'll just ask you to keep trying there, and we'll take another item on the agenda. And then if you're good to go, just raise your hand and we'll come back to you. Okay, thank you to all those who took the time and initiative to give us public comment today. We appreciate you weighing in with us. It really helps us to understand your viewpoints. And Andrea, I mean, Brooke, I see you there. Are you able to unmute and speak to us? I don't know that we can do that from our end. We can't hear you, and it's got the mute sign up.
Yeah, and all we can do is ask her to unmute. And so unfortunately, I don't have the ability to do that on our end either. She's still trying.
Okay.
Did
If,
she
if
send,
if you get that figured out, just give us a sign and we'll come back to you after this item. Okay.
yeah, or even if she's written it up, if she wants to send it to us, we can quickly read it too. So
Mention that as well. Yeah, we're happy to take written comment if we can't make the technology work. Okay, thank you. Sometimes it goes and sometimes it doesn't. So thank you this morning. Okay, we will move to the next item on our agenda, which is the standards revision process. And I believe Director Thronson is going to help us with that one. You could just give us the intro, Jennifer, and then we'll get into that item.
Yes, thank you. Jennifer Thronson, Director of Teaching and Learning, and we are here today to start the revision process as you have experienced this most recently and currently with the social studies standards. There's been a need to reconsider our current process to see if we can get board input earlier in the process and make some adjustments. So based on our experience over the last few years, I've taken the feedback and tried to weave it in here. I'm sure you'll have additional feedback. We did a brief presentation at the last full board meeting in October. And at that point, I got one comment back from board member Hart that wanted the word triggered, which I should have already fixed because it's not what we call it anymore, changed. And so I changed it to queued because that's what we call it currently. Again, could be changed, but I did make that adjustment from the version that you currently have. But the intent here today is to allow you as committee members to help shape the future of the standards revision process so that we can bring that revised process to the board for their consideration. So with that said, happy to have Board Chair Hanson lead us through and the committee to help make this better.
Okay, Jennifer, and I appreciate that intro. And I think we have recognized the need for board input sooner in the process so that we can give direction to the writing committee and then honor the writing committee's work at the end of the process. Maybe a process that lends itself more to that. Could you point out in the process where that early board input would come so that we can understand that? And then I'll go, I've got Jenny and Brent both with hands up. So if you could.
Absolutely. So it's going
How
to
would you
start.
do
So
that?
the first part is is it time for the queuing, where you're going to see that earlier board process was to once the parent review committee or the standards review committee that we get with parents from the legislature and parents from the board, we then would bring together in that 5 their recommendations. And at that point, we would also ask the board for their recommendations. So in the past, we would bring those review committee comments. And because the process didn't really say, what do you do with those comments? This would allow the board to accept or deny those recommendations to help lead the staff in the writing committee's work, but also for the board to say, here are the things we are interested in seeing in the future design. Currently, that has not been the process. The current process has been, here's the review committee's recommendations, take those to work with the writing committee. And the board wasn't able to really say much about those recommendations or take action on those. And the board didn't have an opportunity to give feedback at that point on their own desires of what they want this to look like. So that step 5, I know it seems later in the process, but a lot of this is just getting the review committee together. Is where the board would actually say, here's the things we want. Another idea as I'm talking about it, you could have it to where the board provides some recommendations that we bring to the review committee for their consideration, get their kind of input into those and bring it back. And again, the board would still have this authority to say, well, we still want them, even if the review committee didn't. That could be an option. So I'll just keep throwing out options today so we can hopefully get this in a better place and not take, I think we're at over 3 years on social studies to see if we can get a little quicker process that still produces quality standards.
I appreciate that. So my understanding is that at the stage where we have the statutory review committee, which is the parents that come in, we'd also have board input at that point. And I'm seeing this as maybe bullet point kind of input. And we want more emphasis on this. We think that this is not not a complete standard at that stage. Is that kind of what you're envisioning?
Yeah, more like the broad strokes, the general concepts, the themes that you'd like to see weaved in, not like here's the standard necessarily that we want. I mean, you could obviously, but this would be more, we're really interested in financial literacy being weaved into these standards or something like that.
Okay, very good. Jenny, and then Brent, you're on deck.
Yeah, so under step 3, it still doesn't, and I mentioned this last month, it doesn't articulate the actual law. This is something a little different. You have staff submits a written request to the superintendent to assist with identifying members for the standards review committee. They don't actually do that. The bottom part is accurate. The state board chair may appoint, but what the law says is the state board shall notify. That's what the role is there. And if that's through staff, that's fine, is the notification. So
Well,
I think
it helped me because I made that note there that you had given that feedback. When I reviewed it, I didn't, here's how I was thinking about it when we were all. So we do have to submit a request to the legislature to send us those names. So I was trying to articulate that stuff. If there's a better way to word it, please feel free.
well, it doesn't say that there. So it says staff submits a written request to the superintendent to assist. In other words, they're helping to identify members of the writing committee. That's not who identifies. The identification comes through the house. And, right.
Let me jump in right here. Maybe we can just get the statute up on the screen. We can get that wording and we'll get it out. We're going to take about 20 minutes on this one. We're going to try and move forward on the next item at about 10. So
wait 1 second, I'll pull it up and share a different screen. So basically how the process works is we ask Sherry Rubin, superintendent's assistant, to contact the 2 contacts at the legislature and the Senate and the House, and then they send us names. So the wording maybe doesn't articulate that as well as it could, so we can definitely make that adjustment.
Under 2B, it just says that the state board shall notify speaker.
Right.
Okay, what's that code section, Jennifer, that you're on?
53E4-203. And I can put the link in the chat box if that would be helpful for, this will be part of the work for sure today. So that 2B, and I can just copy that language if you prefer.
Yeah, that would be fine. I just think it needs to accurately represent. We don't help them pick their people unless there's not a response. And then that wouldn't be us helping them. It would be, right? Unless I misunderstood what the intent was.
We basically just prompt them to tell us.
We notify them that, right? It's a notification,
yep,
right?
Exactly.
That you need those names, right?
I will do.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like we can.
It's an easy, it's more accurate this way.
And then we can just reference the code section as well. Bring the language in and reference the code.
I think it is referenced. Oh, well, it's required by, it's referenced there somewhere.
It's referenced at the top. Everything is by some kind of rule or policy in this work. So,
Chair Hansen, and I also don't have the ability to raise my hand, but we do have Angie Stalling. We do have Angie Stallings in here. And if there's any questions about when it says the state board shall notify, or if that means the board, I know that question was brought up as well, but if you wanted any additional clarification on the latitude or flexibility within that, she's here to answer any of those questions.
Okay, and that's fine. Angie, if you have something to add, I would assume, that doesn't mean that we as a body are going to go over and knock on, the speaker's door. It means that we will delegate to staff and to go over and contact them, I would assume. But Angie, is there anything else we need to understand there?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, committee members. Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent of Policy. I just wanted to remind the committee as well that in 53G3401, and I do have that section I could drop in the chat or give to whoever's screen sharing. It does state, I believe it's in here, I assumed, sorry, I'm trying to find it, that the state board may delegate its authority. And if you look in subsection 4, so it was 53E as in egg, not ground, 53E3401. if you go to subsection 4, it states that the state board may delegate the state board statutory duties and responsibilities to state board employees. And usually we do that in board rule where we say the superintendent shall and provide kind of that delegation to the superintendent. With respect to providing the notice about starting up a committee, because I just saw that briefly on the screen when I entered in, I'd have to look to see how we've delegated that, but the board does have the authority to delegate to its staff.
So should we put the state board employees shall, or do you want the board to make that email connection?
If I'm understanding what Angie just said, is that this implies that. Is that accurate, Angie? That stating this actually allows for the other to take place. We don't have to spell it out further. Is that accurate?
Correct. I mean, the state board may delegate and ask staff to do that. What I guess I'm missing the context behind what was the question, whether the board chair needed to send the email instead of staff.
I think it was just staff.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we should be clear about who, like we can, at this point, if I were staff, I would assume the board's going to be sending the emails unless we added that employees. Like, let's say I'm gone and you have a new director, they might assume that the board has to do that without having been part of this conversation. So if we're okay with staff doing it, the state board staff shall notify, then we can go through our process and have staff do that once the board has approved for that review committee to occur.
Yeah, personally, we have lots of places where it says the board or the superintendent, and those are all delegable things. I mean, we can just direct staff to send a letter out. If we start doing that in every rule or process that we have, putting in can be delegated, I think that it's not going to be worthwhile. That's my personal opinion. I would think that we're okay with what's there. Brent, Jenny, do you have more on this?
Do we need to take a motion as we go? How do you guys want to handle the changes?
That's probably a good idea. Let's do that. Jenny, make your motion on this one.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we add in the state board shall notify the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate at least 30 business days before establishing a standards review committee as per outlined in 53E 4203. 203. Maybe that's all I need to put. 203, I think it's 2B, but 53 4 203. I think it's 2B. Sorry, I have to go back and look.
Board Member Hanson, before you move away from this, may I just make one follow-up comment?
Certainly.
I just wanted to state that we would not want to get in the practice in Utah code of starting to delegate things to the superintendent. There are some times where the superintendent has specific positions on committees or boards. And, but in general, almost all of the duties that USBE performs and USBE staff perform state the board shall. It's always the board who's been asked to do that. And then the board has staff, essentially the superintendent staff. So I just wanted to state that if you're talking about Utah code language, I would not recommend changing to the superintendent shall. I would recommend maintaining that the board shall, and then having the board delegate that. I just wanted to make that statement so that we don't, as anybody maybe besides me is having conversations with legislators. I think the legislature back in 2015 or 16 was very deliberate in trying to give all of the duties that are essentially USBE's duties and the board's duties, making that very clear in code that that's the board, and then giving the board that authority to then delegate to staff, which, as Board Member Hanson stated, there's this kind of implicit or almost explicit expectation that our state board is not going to collectively draft an email or do every single thing in there, but that they can delegate that to staff. So that's the last thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie. Is there anything with this language that's on the screen that is giving you heartburn on that? Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. Jenny, back to your motion then. I think we have that motion.
That's it. Yep.
We'll go. I don't know about the language as per outlined. Somebody who's
I guess I was just, it doesn't have to be
Just
that.
as
We could just add the
outlined?
code. Yeah.
as outlined in, okay.
Yep.
Okay, committee members, we have a motion to add the language that's highlighted in yellow on the screen. The state board shall notify the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate at least 30 business days before establishing a standards review committee as outlined in 53E-4-2032B to request, and then the language below. Committee members, is there any discussion to that motion? I have some hands up. Brenda, is your discussion to this one?
Well, I was actually on something else, but
okay,
my hand, but I just want to, so the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, they're not approving the name, they're just approving the start of the process. Is that what this is saying?
But they select the parents. If they don't select the parents, then we do.
Okay, right. Okay.
Okay, and I see in the chat maybe that as described would be better than as outlined. You okay with that, Jenny?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Very good. Then
Would it be, let me just ask it, would it be better to say standards review committee to request as described? Would it be better to put the to request before the, I know it just, to me, that makes a little more sense. Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. We have a motion before the committee. I'm not going to read through all this one again, but committee members, please go ahead and vote. Let me see. And I'm not able for some reason to get on and vote right now. I don't know what's going on there. I'm an I on this one, Andrea. I'll figure out my voting button. It's disappeared.
Okay, it looks like it was unanimous.
Board member Straight.
I'm sorry.
I think we've lost board member Straight.
No, I'm on here.
I saw it. I saw a yes from him.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, committee. We'll go ahead.
May we go back up to board member Hart's suggestion, since that probably needs to be voted on, was to change triggered, which has a negative connotation, to cued.
Okay. Let's
Sure.
do
I'll
that.
make a motion.
Okay, Brent, go ahead.
I move that we remove the word triggered on step 1 of the review process. It also needs to be on the step on the far left to the word queued, or on the other side to queue. Review, you see what I'm talking about? It has a step description, and then to the left of it has step, so that needs to be changed. All right, so that's good.
Okay. So the motion before the committee is that we change in step 1, the word triggered to queued in 2 places. That sound correct? Okay, committee members, please go ahead and vote on that. And I'm an aye on that one.
I show that that was unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Okay, we'll come back to member Straight, please.
I noticed that there's another hand up. That's probably public comment.
Okay, Brent, that's our public comment. We're going to take that as soon as we finish this.
Oh. Okay. All right, so I tried to find this, but I couldn't. It's an update of January 7th, 2020 regarding the social studies standards revision process. I don't know if we can. I had some questions on that in relationship to this.
And I'm sorry, Brent, you're cutting out a little bit, but you're saying there's another document that was from back in
Well,
January?
There was it appears to be an update on the progress of developing the standards for social studies.
May I speak to that?
Yeah, please go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, so in one of the processes, we've been through a couple. We had these updates that would happen every other month, where when we're actually in like the writing time, that the staff would come and give you updates along the way. I don't know that made it in this revision. So if that's something you want to see added, we can add it during that writing committee piece, that the staff would come back at the interval that you would desire to give you updates on the kind of coming alongs of the standards process writing.
So, one of the reasons I bring this up is I found that document to be very, very informative. The process of what work was being accomplished by the committee, how they were going about that process. And I remember early on as a board member, I requested, hey, can I see some of these reports, and could I see who's on the committee and where we're at on because it gave updates on what step of the process. And so it appears to me.
Okay, Brent, you are fading in and out. We're gonna have to get you to put your mouth right on the mic, I guess, and so that we can. But if you have a motion to make, please go ahead and we'll move things along here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. Now I'm getting my connection is unstable. This is frustrating. So as I was looking at these updates that were provided every other month to the Standards and Assessment Committee, and I think sometimes based on how it reads, that it must have been also to the full board. Is that correct?
We generally went to committee first. I'm wondering for like one of the things I think we've learned from this process is that the full board is very motivated by standards. And so it might be worth having it as a consent calendar item that you guys can review. You'd get the content. And then as board members want to pull it off to have more discussion, that would be, something that you guys do on a pretty regular basis with consent calendar. But that way, if it seems pretty benign, you can not take it up as an item in the Standards and Assessment Committee and then having to go to board the next month. It just would speed that process up a little bit. So that might be the recommendation I would have. But again, this is your guys' process, so whatever you would like.
Okay, so Dr. Thronson, how long has the current process been in place?
The most recent one, let me pull it up. I think it's from 2020.
So I'm talking about the process for any standard.
Oh, before my time, and I've been here 8 years. So
okay, so this process has worked many times.
Well, we've iterated on the process, I think at least 6 times since I've been in this position, and I've been in this position 3 years, 3.5.
Well, I'm definitely for improvement. But my point is, it appears to me that there's been many, many opportunities to keep this committee and the board informed of what's going on regarding the standards. But what I notice about this is this process began in June of 2019. That's when it was queued. And and they were at step 6 based on the report of January 7th of 2020.
Yes.
What
so
I think
COVID slowed us down quite a bit. So generally, if you look at ELA, they started a year later, and they'll be at you all for committee potentially next month with the revised draft. So they'll be at step 10 or 9 or 10. And so they took about a year less. A lot of it was COVID and trying to pull people together during that time, slowed down the social studies process. And now the slowdown is more just getting the standards right at the end. Social studies has been a unique one in terms of the amount of time it's taken.
Yes, and I would say that the magnifying glass of COVID greatly impacted the social studies standards, and that is what has brought us to a great deal of angst in regards to it, not the process. However, that being said, I think reviewing our processes and making improvements is always a good idea. So I just want to point out also that as I read this one-page document, it talks very specifically about the processes and the whys. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And, you know, there's also one other intervening factor. You're on step 6, and then you change the board over. You have new members of the committee. And, you know, it really took me digging in and trying to figure out, well, where we've been and why where we're at. And if I had, and I think that most board members that I've talked to, they didn't have that institutional knowledge in regards to this. So I guess I think we may have already put it in there, but those updates, I think they're absolutely important, and it appears it was already a part of the previous process. So do we need to make a motion on that, Chair Hansen, or?
Yes, Brent. So we're making motions to modify the document that's in front of you.
Okay.
If you have one, let's please make it.
Well, I think they've written it
I
in
think
there,
we just
right?
need to keep things moving along today, so that we can accomplish what we need to. So if you
I'm
have,
all for that.
get it out there, and then let's have discussion to that motion specifically. And
All right.
then-
So I move the staff provides bi-monthly progress submissions to the board on the consent calendar, including progress being made and timely updates. And you talked earlier about that being that input. Maybe not this standard or that standard. What was the word?
we're losing you again, Brent. I do have the motion, but I can't hear what you said after that.
I'd also like to add to that motion what you had mentioned, or maybe it's already here, in regards to what type of feedback we can give at this point.
So with that piece, Chair, if I may, that one's up a little
Yeah.
above. So maybe I would recommend we do this
Yeah.
motion on the writing committee and then go back up to that part. And you might also want more feedback during this section, but we do have part of that as well.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's put
handle
that on
this.
the table then.
Okay, we'll handle this and then we can jump back to the previous one. So we do have a motion. I'm having a hard time reading that, but it's going to say, we're going to add to step 6 that staff provides bi-monthly progress submissions to the board. If you can blow that up a little bit, that would help me. Okay, thank you. So on step 6, add the words, staff provides bi-monthly updates or bi-monthly progress submissions to the board on the calendar, including progress being made and timely updates. Okay, any discussion to that motion? Jenny, is yours to this one?
Yeah, just a quick, and I appreciate Board Member Straight picking up on this. This is one I didn't notice was missing. I do think it is important to have those updates. I think it's appropriate to have them on the consent calendar because most of those to me haven't really been, it's been, here we are in the process. That's what most of those are. And quite honestly, that's not much information as far as how the standards are coming from me. So if it I'd like a little more depth to it. Like we're third of the way through 3rd grade, we're having hangups on this and that, it doesn't have to be, it really, I think speaking to the process more than I'm not the process, but what's happening more than just the process. We're on step 3. Well, I know we're on step 3, right? And I know who the writing committee members are. So to me, it's a little bit more, but those things are important to maybe people that are not following, but just a little bit more information, a couple paragraphs about what's happening, that kind of a thing. So
I think this language gives us some latitude to adjust the format, make requests of staff to get the content that we want in those updates. I guess my idea would be to leave it like this and then work that stuff rather than be really specific in here about what has to be. brought
Chair
to-
Hanson, I would agree with that. I just
right.
maybe voicing to staff, so.
Yep, very good. Thank you.
So
And-
Chair Hanson,
To this
I
motion.
had Robert Austin found the document I was referring to. Thank
Okay.
you. And if you want to review that, that might be helpful.
I don't know that we need to. Is it the one that just shows the
Right.
update? from
I
before?
just was telling you it's there.
All right, thank
That
you.
might be helpful.
That link in the chat, maybe if we need to.
I-
do that.
I sent an email.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. The motion before the committee is that in step 6, we'll add staff provides bi-monthly progress submissions to the board on the consent calendar, including progress being made and timely updates. So go ahead, please, and vote on that. Okay,
I
you
show
got
that
that,
that passed
Andrea?
unanimously.
Very good, thank you. I need some help from staff with regard to priorities. We're an hour into our meeting. We have 2 hours left. Help me understand whether we should continue with this, which looks like it's going to be quite a lengthy process, or if we should be moving on to the next item.
I just have one more, but maybe Brent has more.
Okay. Brent, can you give us an idea?
Well, I may have others, but I think let's vote on yours, on your suggestion, and then move on.
Okay, well, if we can finish this, we'll finish it. But if it's going to take another, half hour or more, then we need to think about our other items. So let's move then to Jenny's, and I'm assuming, Brent, that you don't have that your items are fairly quick.
I wanted to make the motion that we're looking at on 5 right now.
Okay, let me bounce back to Jenny and then we'll come to you.
Okay, my question has to do with step number 10. I just wondered if we're wanting it to go to a committee at a certain point, or if that's still available, or if it's just full board action. I understand there's full board action here, but there's no discussion of when it gets to this point, if it needs to go to a committee. And so I'm just trying to understand if that got removed or if that's still available.
Yeah,
Chair.
let's ask Jennifer, can you help us with that? I noticed that as well, that we
Yeah,
committee's not as involved as we have been in the past.
It is not, and part of that is it speeds up the process potentially. But also, what we end up seeing is that what happens in committee often gets repeated in full board. So it just seemed to shorten up your guys' lift in terms of having those conversations twice and being able to have them effectively once. So if you want a committee, we can throw that back in, but this was really, we end up hashing the same things often in committee to full board. So this would just skip that step of having to do it twice.
Thoughts from committee members? Jenny?
I think having the option available there still is a wise thing. So maybe the full board will determine the path moving forward, moving the standards forward.
I can make a path D that they can make the decision to send it to committee first.
Yeah, I think just leave that open, because I do agree with what you're saying. That, it may just be, yep, let's just bring it all before the full board. But I think a path D would be appropriate, or refer to committee. It's
a little messy.
It could be referred to committee, using something about using recommendations. I still think that 30-day process. So maybe still opening up that 30-day process, if that makes sense. That's it. That's my last thought on these. I think they're more thoughtfully done, and I appreciate the hard work that's been put in with staff on this.
All right, so we have a motion to add on step 10 a path D, which would allow the board to take the standards back to committee for review, and the language is shown up on your board. On your screen.
And I think the same process that's outlined in C though. So staff will forward that it still allows for that 30-day process. So
I'll copy that bullet over. And you want to give me, like, we have, if the board determines substantial reasons are still warranted, is that kind of why we'd want to send it to committee? Just for the if then kind of statement.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me see.
I think that's, I mean, the board would decide either to do it with the full board or send it back to committee.
And then it would take into consideration something like that, right? Consideration of all board members or comments from the 30-day period, something
Sure.
like that.
Like that?
Yeah, I think that looks good.
Okay. Thanks
So
for
we
working.
we have a motion for the committee to add a path D as is shown on your screen, which would send the draft to committee instead of to the full board for consideration of comments and revisions. Hopefully that's a complete enough motion. Committee members, any comments to that? Brent, is your comment on this one?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm reading through that, and it feels like we're using the term committee interchangeably between the board committee and the writing committee.
Good point.
The writing committee is listed in that section. And so this is a little more tricky than most boards I've served on, because on most boards you have a committee or a planning commission or some advisory group. It's only a two-stage process. Here we have three different entities trying to work through this. And so I guess I have concerns. I don't have a change. There's nothing that like sets off sirens as I look at this. But it seems like it's maybe a little complex on how we come to some type of agreement. I know on land use issues that can be very, very tough when you're dealing with those situations on a local level, but that only involves two. And usually when you send something back to get input regarding your questions or thoughts of either support or non-support, and then you get additional feedback with the final decision, of course, lying with the full board. But I'm concerned about that process, how efficient it can be, and if things could get bogged down at that point. But I don't know. It seems to be fine.
Okay, so Brent, I think we've made a slight change there to clarify that this goes back to Standards and Assessment Committee. I think that's if, instead of as, maybe to the Standards and Assessment, if substantial revisions are still warranted, instead of maybe as.
Or maybe when.
Or when, sure.
Yeah, I think that clarifies it more. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion before the committee is on the board to create a path D on step 10. If the board recommends the standards to be sent to Standards and Assessment Committee when substantial revisions are still warranted, staff will forward the revised draft standards to board members for a 30-day comment period. Board members will track their changes, suggestions, in an editable format and submit to staff within 30 days of receipt. Following the comment period, staff will work with the writing committee and board members as needed to revise the standards and resubmit for board review. Oh, is that what we want, Jenny?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, committee members, please go ahead and vote on that one. Andrea, you let me know when we get there.
Yeah, I show that I'm waiting. I was waiting for yours. There you go. And then now it was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, any others on this one? Brent, you had one?
It's already on the screen.
I think
I'm not sure if we're up or down.
on step 5, is that where we were?
I think so.
Okay. Okay,
Is-
so your motion is to add all that in red, is that right, or?
Yes.
That's what was already there, so you don't need to make a motion if you're okay with what's there.
Oh, okay. We're
Okay.
good.
Okay. So nothing needs to be done there. I think we're looking for a motion then to adopt the revision standards as revised.
I'd like to make that motion if that's okay.
Okay, please.
I'd like to make the motion that we adopt, I don't know if I'm going to get the words right, the standards revision process as amended. Would that be accurate?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion before the committee to adopt the standards revision process as amended today in our standards assessment meeting and pass that on to the full board for approval. Any discussion to that motion? Not seeing hands, so we'll go ahead and vote.
I show that that passed unanimously.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Andrea. And that completes that item. We've kept Ms. Johnson waiting for some time. Were you able to unmute?
Chair
Yes?
Hansen,
Oh,
do we
sorry.
need a final motion to send the whole thing so that recommends the committee approves the proposed revision process as amended for the stand? Do we need a final motion?
I think that we just.
We just did that.
Okay,
Patty.
just,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep, so we'll go to our public comment. Ms. Johnson, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I apologize for that. Apparently my settings had been turned off and I had to figure that out. I'm here also to speak on, my name is Brooke Johnson. I'm here to speak on social studies standards as well. I would just want to thank the Standards Assessment Committee for the work they've done. This is important and definitely worth our time and attention, and I appreciate the work that you guys have done. I just wanted to highlight some of the proposed language that I think is well written, referring to 6.2.5 in the sixth grade standards. Describe the development of liberty, law, and self-government in Europe and at least 2 other civilizations during the post-classical period. For example, the rise of the merchant class, Magna Carta, common law, feudalism in Europe and Japan, and describe how the history of government, the history and ideals of government and liberty in medieval and Renaissance Europe contributed to modern American ideals of liberty and government. And then the sixth grade strand 4, the modern world. Students will explore the development of the ideals and institutions of liberty and self-government in modern Europe and the world, the challenge of Nazi and communist dictatorships, and describe how America's ideals and institutions contributed to the development and preservation of these ideals and institutions. They will examine how free markets and the Industrial Revolution brought unprecedented prosperity to humanity, and evaluate the effectiveness of competing political systems in sustaining economic growth and the broad distribution of its benefits. I am just encouraging the adoption of this language. And again, I appreciate your time and the efforts that it's been put in on this behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you sticking around with us. I'm glad you did this morning.
It's important. Thank you.
Okay, we will move then to our next item. And we are on, this is the definitions. And I believe we have Holly Bell here. Is she going to help us get into this one? Please, Holly.
Happy to. Holly Bell, Student and Family Rights Specialist, Utah State Board of Education. We have one more word to define under R277328, and that term is racism. And I don't know, Patty, are you sharing?
If you'd like for me to share, I can share them, or would you like to share them? I can share them.
Okay, go ahead. So we have 3 different definitions that have been proposed. One is from Board Member Earl, one from Board Member Hanson, and then we have the Webster's definition that you've been working from.
Thanks, Holly. Jenny, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just going over these, I've talked to a number of people. The middle one is more simplified. I do think it needs just a couple of things added to it. Just as I've gone back over this a number of times this week, because I think it needs to add in. So this is what this is my motion, to use exhibiting sorry, not the middle one. Where's the bottom one? Belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences and that racial differences lead to negative prejudices or discrimination, especially when they produce an inherent superiority or inferiority of a particular race. Just adding 2 things to that. So I don't know if I can restate that.
Okay, please do. Let's.
It just adds. It adds a little bit more than the superiority. It's not just superiority, it's also that inferiority, but it also adds what it leads to. It leads to a negative prejudice or discrimination. So it kind of speaks to the outcome. So if you've got and then I would just recommend we work from there.
Okay, so we'll get a motion on the board.
Okay, so after differences, this is what you would add. Lead to negative prejudices or discrimination, especially when then the rest of it's the same. And then after superiority, it's or inferiority. So it broadens it out just a little bit, but it clarifies and it adds the what it leads to it. Okay, that's what I would recommend.
Okay, we have a motion before the committee that the board adopt the definition of racism, stating the belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences lead to negative prejudices or discrimination, especially when they produce an inherent superiority or inferiority of a particular race. Laura, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Where did this definition come from? I know that Holly stated them, but I wasn't sure which one was which.
Chair, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please, if you have that information.
So in front of you, and I didn't put on backups who put which definition. And so I believe, isn't the first one you, Chair Hanson?
No, the first one's mine.
The first one is yours.
Yeah,
okay.
In the middle.
Yours is in the middle. And then the last one, did that come from Webster? I'm not very much help, am I?
Yeah, I think so. That one is.
Question and with a non-answer.
Okay, well, we had on the table that we were working from, I think we had the Webster's definition there. Maybe we could pull that up and look at it and see.
Okay, so I have Webster's was belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And I will paste that into the other.
So, Chair, may I follow up?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So I actually really appreciate this definition, but we wouldn't be able to put that this came from Webster if we make changes to it.
No.
So I actually don't have any qualms with what Board Member Earl has put here. But then I don't know how we would present to the board where this definition came from, or maybe we don't do that.
Okay, appreciate that comment. I'm gonna speak for a moment, and then Brent, I see your hand up. And I would speak against this one and in favor of that middle definition, if we can get that up on the screen. And I'm trying to find the source. I sent that in, and I think I had the source identified in the email that I sent over, but I'm not finding that right now. But let's see if we can get back to those three definitions, please. On the screen. Yeah, this second one, exhibiting prejudgment, bias, discrimination, hatred, or violence towards a person or group of persons because of their origin or their belonging or not belonging to a specific ethnic group or race. For me, that captures the behavior that we're trying to avoid when we talk about racism. And it can be directed towards either a specific person or a group, and it's based on race, but prejudgment, bias, discrimination, hatred, or violence, those are the symptoms, I guess, or the manifestations of racism that we're trying to avoid. So I think that definition helps us to understand how racism might be manifest, I guess, and what it looks like, so that we can root that out as we've pledged to do. So I'd speak against this, and I'll make a motion if this one doesn't pass to adopt that definition. Go ahead, Member Straight.
Yeah, so I may need some help on this, but I believe there was a definition of racism in the resolution, or I guess the proclamation with the board, and then the resolution from the legislature on critical race theory. They have the three elements that could not be taught. It seems to me that there was a definition of racism contained within that, not explicitly stated, but implicitly. Am I right about that? Either one of those?
I don't know, Brent. So you're referring back to our resolution and then the legislature's resolutions?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, this is Janet.
Yes, Janet.
I happen to have the paper right in front of me, and I don't think it defines racism. It says racism in the past and the present is destructive to individuals and society as a whole. And on the back, it says racism can be unconscious or unintentional, and identifying racism as an issue does not necessarily mean that those involved in the act are racist or that any negative impact was intended. That's where it speaks about racism, but I don't believe it gives a specific definition.
Thank you. That was that's how I remember that as well. I don't know about what came over from the legislature. I'm looking right now to see if I can pull those up. Let's see. There's 901.
Yeah, Senate Resolution 901, you got it. So
Yeah, I'm pulling it up on my computer, but I'm not seeing that there's a definition there. Negative impacts racism has had throughout history. And then it just talks about one race is inherently superior or inferior to another. Individuals should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment. An individual's moral character is determined. So it's got some aspects of racism, I guess, in there.
If you put racism is in front of those statements, would that be a definition of racism?
That would be, if you'd like to propose that. I think that we just need to speak on this motion, and then we'll vote on Jenny's motion, and then we can move forward. Like I said, I'll make a motion if that one doesn't pass, and then we can go from there. You could make a motion as well, Brent, if you want to adopt that.
I'll wait.
Okay. So right now we have the definition proposed by member Earl in front of us. And that is that the board defined racism as belief that race is a fundamental determinant of and capacities, and that racial differences lead to negative prejudices or discrimination, especially when they produce an inherent superiority or inferiority of a particular race. Okay, committee members, please, any comment to that? Jenny, you've got your hand up. Did you want to speak to that?
Well, I'm not speak to this, but I would speak to yours if this doesn't pass. So.
Okay, we'll get you afterwards then. So committee members, please go ahead and vote. Okay, have you got that, Andrea?
Yeah, I have Jenny voting in positively and the rest negatively.
Okay, thank you. So move on to the next motion. That is that middle definition. And the motion would be that the board defines racism as exhibiting prejudgment, bias, discrimination, hatred, or violence towards a person or group of persons because of their origin or their belonging or not belonging to a specific ethnic group or race. Comments to that, Jenny?
Yeah, you've lost some of the key components in this definition, and we've also made some assumptions too. The prejudgment part is a piece where we can't accurately measure, nor can we assume that people experience judgment all the time, not necessarily on race, but it could be about different people. And those aren't actually put out into actions. And so when we put this into place, we're actually suggesting that somehow we can actually, especially in the school system, make this prejudgment about others. So and then also we've lost the superiority or inferiority, which is often what is the main root of racism for something that this idea of belonging or not belonging. So it's not so much belonging to something or not belonging to it as it is the superiority or inferiority. So I would speak against this.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Laura, please.
So Chair Hansen, you made a comment of maybe where this came from. Where did this definition come from?
I'm still
Can
looking.
someone help me?
No, I found it somewhere and I just need to find it in the email that I sent. I believe I cited it there. If I didn't, I'll need to find it. So
Can I just pose this? So Chair Hansen, did this either come from a dictionary, from Dr. Google, whatever, came from somewhere like that?
yes, no, I looked at several different definitions doing a Google search like we do. And this is the one that I thought was most appropriate. So I'll try and find that.
I'm okay with that. And maybe we can find that just to note that later. Thank you.
Don't know if there's other comment. I'll just respond quickly to what Jenny said. I believe that superiority, inferiority is really the prejudgment and bias. That's what goes to that. I mean, the prejudgment is that someone, because of the color of their skin or their belonging to an ethnic group or race, is superior or inferior. The same with the bias. So I believe it's covered there. But like I said, I just looked at many different definitions and thought that this one is appropriate for us because it shows how that racism might be manifest and allows us to recognize that. So we'll go ahead then and vote. The motion is that we adopt the definition of racism as exhibiting prejudgment, bias, discrimination, hatred, or violence toward a person or a group of persons, or their belonging or not belonging to a specific ethnic group or race. And it looks like Cornell law is where that came from. Is that right, Holly?
That's what I found when I did a search.
All right, thank you. I should have recognized that. I go to that place often, but okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
I show that the motion passed with four in favor and one opposed.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Okay, we'll move on then to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of the Prevent Child Abuse Utah Child Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention Instruction Materials, number 5 on our agenda. And let me see who we have to help us with that one. Is that Tanya?
Yes, Chair, I'm here.
All right, very good.
I think Patty's going to start us off.
Okay, we'll go with Patty and then Tanya, you're here to help.
I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm just making sure that we all have the same screen up. So Tanya, you have the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to just start out with the reminder of the Child Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention Overview, which is the role of the Standards Committee and then the role of the board as we move it forward, going to those questions that had been stated before. First, within 53G-9-207, again, the state board shall approve materials for training and instruction. They shall provide every other year training and instruction on child sex abuse and human trafficking prevention and awareness. The shalls are according to school personnel and parents of elementary school students. Then there is another one down here that the school district or charter school shall use the instructional materials approved by the state board and provide the training. So those are the shalls that are within it. Then when it comes to youth materials or the materials that are being presented to children in this case, it states that they may be provided. So an LEA may choose to provide curriculum for their youth or for the students within. So they may provide instruction. If they do choose to provide instruction, then they shall use materials that are approved by the state board. So those are the differences within it. We have the shalls, and then the may then cues up the thing that if they do choose, then that curriculum must be approved by the school board. Then within there, there's also the notice with the parental consent and notification. With the parental consent, the instruction may not be given unless the parent of the student is notified in advance. They also have the right to review the curriculum, and they are allowed to be present during the curriculum when it is being, or during the lesson when it is being presented. And they can be excused from that presentation without any recourse to that child. And then next we have the national statistics that are on here. We've been asked, what are those stats? And as you can see in here, 52 states, what the numbers are. More than 4/5 are between the ages of 18 and 44 years old. 1/2 of them are female, and the largest populations of perpetrators are white, and the majority of the perpetrators are parents to their victims. So then the next one on here is that, during 2019, Child Protective Services received a national estimate of 4.4 million. And if we compare that, that is, the state of Utah does have about 4.3 million people in it. So if we look at those comparisons, it is estimated that only 1 in 10 child victims disclose the abuse. So when we're looking at all of these numbers at the prevalence, then many of these never disclose the fact that they were abused until they're later on in an adult. So the numbers would then that we're looking at would actually be increased if they were reported earlier on. Next slide, please. When we go to the Utah statistics, and this is something that I sit as a commissioner on the CCJJ, and then also on the board for the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee. And they were giving us some stats from BCI, the Bureau of Crime Investigation, I think that's right. And then also the FBI, where they have some crime statistics specific to Utah. And we've had several board members reach out and community members saying, well, how do we know if this is even happening in our area or not? Or the view of, is it even prevalent? Do our kids need to know this? And during this is a view of just one of the graphs that you can find in there. And this view, when you go in, you can look at it by state. You can look at it by demographics of, like, for example, this is the statistics in Weber County. And so when we look at those statistics, I think these are the statistics of Weber County, then you can drill down and you can say who. So this is by victim. So the offender, in this case, the largest offenders are those ages 10 to 19. And if you look at the ages, those 455 offenders impacted 829 children within this. So the next slide, another statistic within that we can give you access to those. I'll put those, they're very, very interesting. I'll put those two in the chat so that all of you have those. And this is the demographics. So if we go to the next one, it is where it's happening. And if you look at this, of those 1,304 of those are happening in the home, and 562 are by an acquaintance. So they are known to the child. So looking at these demographics, it kind of speaks to who the largest population is, who the offenders are, and also, where it's happening as well. Moving to the next slide. We also have the statistics that go along with it. And this is from DCFS. They received 40,364 reports of child abuse and neglect. 20,713 of the reports were accepted for formal CPS assessment. So a total of 7,334 confirmed CPS reports of abuse and neglect resulted in 10,654 confirmed child victims. And again, this is when we're looking at it that only 1 in 10 of these are being reported when we look at the stats. So if we increase that by those that aren't being reported, the numbers are staggering. 21% of those are about child endangerment. We have domestic violence related, 14.3 are sexual abuse as well. So this is always just putting this into perspective as to the number. Next slide, please. And again, this was stated before, and with the parents perpetrated 72% of the child abuse and neglect cases in 2021. Now, that does not mean in any way that parents and all parents are. That's just saying for the number of reported cases and what happened, and that's the statistics for that. Next slide. Human trafficking, this curriculum is a double down curriculum, meaning that it supports the standards both within child sex abuse and also, child abuse, but also human trafficking, and just that knowledge that Utah does rank 4th in the nation for human trafficking. Next slide. Yep, and now it's back to Tanya.
Thanks, Patty. So with that context and that information, we just want to remind you about the USBE process. We didn't, it wasn't too long ago that we went through this process with another set of materials, but we just want to provide you with a reminder. What happens is that the materials are submitted to USBE staff who convene the review process. The statute requires USBE to work in partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services. And the reviewers that we have are from both agencies. They're trained professionals, both from USBE, who are trained in child sex abuse and human trafficking issues, as well as DHHS staff with expertise and training in child sex abuse and human trafficking. They're currently working in child welfare, juvenile justice, and mental health. The reviewers utilize the minimum guidelines and expectations to review the materials. Those guidelines were developed with the help of experts in the fields of child sex abuse, human trafficking. They were developed with prevention advocates and multiple state agencies a number of years ago. Those were approved by the board. So those are the minimum guidelines that we are utilizing when we're looking over the materials, and those are posted on the USBE prevention website. There may be some questions. We talked about the human trafficking rule a couple of months ago. I just wanted to give you an update on where we're at with that. That's currently out for public comment, scheduled to go into effect December 8th, unless we receive comments back that need to be addressed. So these materials were reviewed in a process similar to what will be in place when that rule goes into effect. And then just to let you see what happens once the materials are approved, they're placed on the prevention website. And you can see here that Prevent Child Abuse Utah, who we're here to review today, is already an approved provider right here for youth instructional materials for child sex abuse prevention. And we did review 3 Strands Global a few months ago, and that was approved as right now the only approved curriculum for both human trafficking and child sex abuse prevention. So Prevent Child Abuse Utah will be providing another option in that arena. PCAU, Prevent Child Abuse Utah materials are delivered by trained professional staff from Prevent Child Abuse Utah. They have staff that goes into the school to provide these presentations. Schools have the option to have staff trained to provide the materials online, and they're trained online or in person. But generally, PCAU staff are the ones that are doing the presentations. And if school staff are trained, PCAU provides ongoing support for them. I also wanted to highlight that there's no cost to LEAs for these presentations from Prevent Child Abuse Utah. And today, as a reminder, please remember that the materials that we sent you from PCAU are copyrighted. I sent them to you about a week ago so that you would have time to review those. If you have questions about the material or the content, please refer to the page numbers. The board does not have the authority to adjust the content, and we're not wordsmithing today. We're just making suggestions. We can provide those suggestions back to Prevent Child Abuse Utah. As you saw from earlier, Lorianne is here to answer questions if you have those. And if selected from USBE to be on the approved list, if they're approved by USBE next month in full board, then that would still go to local boards for approval before it's implemented into the schools. So that's our quick overview. And I'm here for questions if any are needed.
Okay, thanks very much, Tanya. Janet, let's hear from you, and then Jenny, and then Brent. So go ahead, Janet.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to give a little shout out and say hi to Lorianne Thorpe, a former state board member who we enjoyed camaraderie with for a while on the board, and tell her how much we appreciate her professional work to prevent child abuse in Utah. And then in addition to that, I would like to place a motion that we approve the Prevent Child Abuse Utah Child Sexual Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention Instructional Materials.
Thank you, Member Cannon. So the motion before the committee is that the committee approve the instructional materials for child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention submitted by Prevent Child Abuse Utah and forward the materials to the full board for approval. Hey, I think we have some comments to that motion. So Jenny, please go ahead, and then Brent, you're up next.
Yeah, I actually had a couple comments before, but I don't know when I can ask those. When would be appropriate?
I'm sorry, these are for with regard to the materials?
No, it would, well, to what Patty had presented, I had a couple of questions, so.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was okay to ask those while we have a motion.
Yeah,
I just, and these, and Patty, maybe you know, and maybe not, this is I have 3 questions. So it said 72% were parent related. Was that, did they differentiate between step parent and natural or not?
No, they did not.
Okay. And then just when I previously researched this a few years ago, there was a significant difference there, but not always. But the percent of parents in Utah, we don't know what percent of parents, right? Overall, meaning that it's 70% of those turned in cases, but it's not 72% of parents, which I think you articulated too. So it's just important to differentiate that. And then the other thing is often when I had previously researched this, that an individual could be turned in for multiple abuses, right? So for 3 children, so it would count 3 times. So it's, so there is some dynamics to that data, if that's accurate.
Yes, and that was reflected on that chart where it would show how many perpetrators compared to victims. And so the perpetrators was less and then the victims were,
right,
more. Yes.
I just want to make sure publicly we realize that. But then when it comes to the actual content, I wish we hadn't approved the previous one because these guys got it right. I'm just saying that they did an excellent job. They didn't lean into the consent language. They were sound when it came to appropriate language of children. I got through both of their documents. There were two areas that I reached out to Lorianne, and I'll tell you what those areas were of concern. And it was just that the wording was a little bit ambiguous, and I can share what that was. Under, if you want a page number, is that what people want? So under the kindergarten curriculum, I think it's on page 4. It just says describe appropriate versus inappropriate behaviors related to physical abuse and sexual abuse. It makes it sound like there might be appropriate behaviors in relation to physical abuse and sexual abuse, and that's not the intent. I just think the language needs to be clear. So, and there's one other area where it asks something similar to that. Let's see if I can actually find the page number. Oh no, it's on page 1. It just says it's not the child's fault, and they learn to recognize physical and sexual abuse in developmentally appropriate ways. Well, there's not developmentally appropriate ways to recognize physical and sexual abuse. So, or at least I understand what she's saying. We just wanted to make sure, or that they're saying, just make sure that it's not confusing. We want it developmentally appropriate. We just want to make sure it's not confusing language. And then the other item was, in some places they reference someone. So for example, it might say if an adult was hurting you in one of these ways, instead of an adult, it really needs to say someone. And half of the curriculum says someone, because it could be someone that's a couple years older than him, or it could be, we don't want to just limit it to adults. We want to make sure that the language is appropriate for all students. So those were just the couple of things. And like I said, they did a phenomenal job. The only thing I didn't see, and I don't know if it was the letter to parents. Did that end up getting included somewhere? That was the one thing I didn't see that I wanted to read.
Or Chair Hansen, may I answer that? Oh, muted.
Please go ahead, Tanya. Sorry.
Thanks for the question, Board Member Earl. PCAU did provide that to me just a few days ago. I wasn't able to get it into backup, but I can provide that for next month, and I can forward it to you.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. That was the one thing I didn't see. And then is it possible to ask just a couple of questions that I have with Lorianne?
That'll be fine, Jenny. Go ahead.
It talked about there in non-contact sexual abuse. I'm just wondering what is that? I mean, what does that look like with kids?
Go ahead, Lorianne, please.
Lorianne Thorpe, Prevent Child Abuse Utah. Thanks, Chair Hansen. It is specifically referring to sexual abuse where there isn't physical contact. So that would be sharing images that are inappropriate, or asking children to provide images, that type of thing, where it is sexual abuse defined by the law, but it is not contact or touching. Okay. So it's helpful for kids to understand that all of those things need to be reported.
Okay, that could be incorporated into, okay, because I appreciated the outlining of that. And do you think there any children that are immune to non-contact sexual abuse, or is there just this idea that that's going to create harm no matter, or we don't want to take that risk, right?
Yeah, I think, that is definitely something in the world that we exist in. It is definitely a concern, I think, for law enforcement and DCFS, Child Protective Services, that we really want to keep kids safe from all of that. And it is all a crime. So we really need to be on top of that. That's something kids need to understand, and it's something adults need to prevent.
Okay, thank you. I just, because it would include images, books, right? Cartoons, lyrics, any of those things, just the protection of kids, right? Okay, that's it. Just wanting to make sure we understand the non-contact sexual abuse. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Member Straight then.
Yes, thank you. I just had a question on the motion.
Okay.
So Board Member Earl referred to some language that she was concerned with. Is the motion from board member Ken and from,
The motion is to adopt the materials as they've been presented to us, and I don't think we have
2 weeks ago, or
right now this language. Materials that are in front of us now.
is that different than what we were sent a couple weeks ago?
Okay, there's a question for staff or for Ms. Thorpe, I think. Has this been revised in the last couple of weeks?
Chair Hansen, may
Yes.
those materials that I sent out a week or so ago are the same materials that we're talking about today.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you.
Thanks, Member Straight. I just have one, and I'm going to vote to approve these as is. I think we can, go forward with these. They look like good materials. They look like they're appropriate and will be very helpful in our schools, and appreciate this organization and our good friend Lorianne for stepping up and jumping into this space where a lot of help is needed. But I had a question about the human trafficking language. I think that's a really difficult concept for kindergartners in particular, and it looked like the same language is used through each step. I'm looking at page 9 on the K through 2 document, pages 9 and 10. And I don't know, I assume that if I saw this happen in the bathroom or in the classroom, it would be much easier to understand. But can you talk to us, Lorianne, about how that actually goes in the classroom, and are kids at kindergarten level able to understand the trafficking discussion?
Well, to be clear, for our Chair Hansen, we haven't taken it into classrooms yet because it hasn't been approved, right? But we do talk to children about child sexual abuse, and that is something we really want to make sure it is age appropriate and understandable. And I want to say too that I think in terms of the experience for the child sex, they're not going to differentiate trafficking versus child sexual abuse. The experience for them is the same thing. And so I can say with some confidence that we do a really good job talking to kids about that and helping them to understand what that experience is and helping them to report. So and for what a kindergartner or an elementary student may experience, I think we do a good job of hitting those topics at their age appropriate level.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's kind of what I assumed, is they'll understand the abuse part, but they may not understand beyond that the causes of the abuse and the adults who may be profiting or whatever from the trafficking aspect of it. Okay. Jenny, do you have something more to add to this one?
Yeah, some of the language that they use is only because we require the language usage. Other than what I'm saying is that, using, I think the way they present it is completely appropriate throughout their different grade levels, but some of the language is because it's forced to be used by us.
No, I understand that
you
have to fit within the guide. I assume there's going to be some adaptation in the classroom to make sure that that's appropriate. But with that comment, we'll go ahead and vote on this. The motion before the committee is the committee approve the instructional materials for child sexual abuse and human trafficking prevention submitted by Prevent Child Abuse Utah and forward the materials to the full board for approval. Please go ahead and vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And thank you, Lorianne, and to your team for putting this together. Appreciate you spending time with us today. We'll move then on to our next item, which is the discipline plans. I think we're on R277609. This is number 6 on our agenda. Standards for local LEA discipline plans and emergency safety interventions. And who do we have to take the helm for that one?
I will lead us out.
Let's go, Jeff.
Potentially board member Earl, if you don't mind me saying we'll tag team, putting you on the spot, but happy to be here. Jeff Van Holten, policy advisor for the board. 609, just as a quick reminder, this rule was before you, I believe, sometime in the summer. And then in either late July or early August, there was a public hearing on this rule while it was out for public comment. In your September board meeting, you received a report on the public hearing and the comments made. There were suggested amendments made by Board Member Earl in particular for this rule. And at that time, the board decided to go in two directions at the same time, to pass the rule as it was out for public comment and to bring the amendments proposed by Board Member Earl to this committee to review those amendments. And the motion specifically highlighted 4 particular areas. 3 of those are within the definition section, and 1 of those is down below regarding parent seminars. I apologize, I didn't have it pulled up right away for you, so I will grab that really quick so we can show it on the screen. But Chair, if it's all right, I would love to pass it over to Board Member Earl, who can provide context, I believe, for the 4 different amendments that she has proposed for you today.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that should be fine. So Jeff, a motion that came from the board, do we have that somewhere so that we can see kind of the scope of our work on this? Is that, we can put that up, and then if we can go from there to Member Earl.
Sure. I will grab that while Board Member Earl is going through her amendments.
Okay. Yep, I sure appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that would be great.
Go ahead, Jenny.
I just think coming out of public comment, as I went back and listened through all of that, and there just needs to be a clear definition so districts aren't, that we've got a description of what that is. So I'm just looking down. Do you want me to go through all 4 of mine? Is that the best way to do it, or one at a time?
Let's hit them one at a time.
Okay, so discrimination, harassment, free learning.
Right.
And this means where students have the opportunity to learn in a positive environment conducive to the learning process and free from unnecessary disruption. An environment where students are expected to exercise self-discipline. And that was taken from law. And I do think there was some other, anyways, it's there. I guess if there's more comment to that. I do think we want to articulate what it is we expect from all students. And that's the reason why put that forward, is that we want to see certain things in an environment so that the learning can take place. And that's the reason why I kind of look back through law and stuff and to see where we could go from there.
Okay. I think we have a couple of different definitions that were put forward. I know the Access Committee gave us some theirs on this. I think there was a definition that I put forward as well. Do we have that information? We can put on the screen.
I don't see that currently in the backup, so let me just,
No,
I know it was in the backup
Yes,
for October, so let me quickly grab it.
No, it's on the backup
is.
for this.
Oh, it
month.
is?
Yeah, it's
Can I
R 277-609 DEF backup document.
Yep.
Ah,
Thank you.
Okay, can we get that up so that folks can see it? I guess you tell me, because I've got it up on another screen. Are you able to see those definitions? We have 3 different options. I think the definition that Member Earl has put forth, which is from R 277-328, definition that I put forward, and maybe I'll have to ask Holly to help me on the source again for this one, but a learning environment in which a student is treated fairly, regardless of the student's characteristics, including but not limited to race, color, religion, or sex, in which a student's ability to participate in or benefit from the services, activities, or opportunities offered is not limited or interfered with by conduct that is physically threatening, harmful, or humiliating. And then from our access committee, we received separate definitions of discrimination and harassment, which, and when we're talking about discrimination and harassment and discrimination-free learning, we would need to put those together somehow to make a definition there. But their definition of discrimination was the act of exclusion from a school activity and or resource that directly impacts a student's ability to learn and grow as a scholar on the basis of a protected class. Harassment, the initial and ongoing actions both on and off school grounds from school community participants or students, including but not limited to verbal or physical torments that impact a student's access to a safe educational environment. So that's kind of the verbiage that we have in front of us. I think we should talk about those definitions for a minute, and then we'll get our motion out there. Jenny, do you have your hand up on this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking through this, I do think we need to articulate what we want as much as possibly adding in what we don't want. And I think even the end of what you've added, Chair Hansen, on yours, if I can pull it back up on my screen, you know, something about and in which a student's ability to participate in or benefit from services, activities, opportunities offered is not limited or interfered. I can see adding that at the end. So you've got the what's the ideal, right? And that's what a discrimination-free environment would look like. And then also what's on the other side of that, if that makes sense. This is what it's not looking like. So I think there is a balance in that, in looking at these.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Are there other people who want to comment on these? If not, we'll get a motion together to try to get a definition out there. Don't see any other hands. And I think what Member Earl is saying is important. The definition I put forward, just I'll advocate for that for a second. It's I think that a learning environment where the student's treated fairly is that's the ideal. That's what we want. And then the harassment part is that the student's ability to participate isn't limited by any kind of threatening, harmful, or humiliating conduct. So I tried to piece those two together in that definition. I think that is two different definitions, one of harassment, one of discrimination, that are put together. So that's my comment on that one. Jenny, please go ahead.
So the one that's listed there on 8, what is that one? Because it's different than mine.
Oh, I thought that was yours.
I thought it was too, but because it starts out the same way, but as I'm looking at it, I have after unnecessary disruption, and then I have an environment where students are expected to exercise self-discipline. So, and
we're going to talk about self-discipline, I think, in a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So there's some of.
Okay. Does someone? I mean,
It would just be removing part of it. I'd have to see back where it was at there.
I'm happy to put forth the motion that we adopt the definition that's at the top of the sheet that we have there. That's harassment and discrimination environment is a learning environment in which a student is treated fairly, and goes on from there. I just read that a minute ago. So I'll put that motion before the committee. Do we have comments to that, Jenny?
Yeah, this actually, like I said, it's adding on, what I added on was 328, but the law itself, I mean, it's within our actual law. Let me see if I can find it. I apologize. I didn't realize it wasn't quoted there specifically, but it's under our not bullying, but our discipline and safety. That's what is cited. That's what I have cited there. Let me see if I can find a way to quickly find that.
Chair Hansen, I think
Yes.
that I have it. It's our, let's see.
It's not the rule, it would be actual law.
So
My
is
apologies.
it R277328?
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
referencing the pieces that that the legislature put up, right? That we put
Okay.
into our 328. So that's a reference to those pieces. But the law itself has to do with it. I just cited it that the student has the opportunity to live in a positive environment conducive to learning environment. Let me,
Because I think I pulled this from what you put in red.
you did. And I am realizing that I didn't cite the actual law because the law is.
Oh, okay.
And I am looking, so I apologize I didn't have that right up because I thought I had that in there. This has to do with safe and healthy schools. School discipline plans.
Board Member Earl,
So it would be under 53G 8202.
Okay, thanks.
And it's cited just right there. The legislature recognized that every student in the public schools should have the opportunity to learn in an environment which is safe, conducive to the learning process, and free from unnecessary disruption. This is under our discipline policies. So that's where that language came from, right from this section that we wrote this code from, or we wrote our rule from. And I can say that again, 53G 8202.
So is that the same as harassment and discrimination free?
Yes, I would argue. It is the desire within the environment, which would be a harassment and discrimination free environment, would look like this: an opportunity to learn in an environment which is safe, conducive to the learning process, and free from unnecessary disruptions.
And I agree that that's a good learning environment. I'm just not sure if it specifically speaks to the harassment and discrimination part.
You don't safe, conducive to learning. The opposite of that would be, right, not learning because of and like I said, if we want to add a little bit more at the end that says what's not. But I think it is important to outline what this does look like.
Okay. Any other comments from committee members? Yeah, I'm not seeing hands. So we have a motion to adopt the definition for harassment and discrimination-free learning environments. That is a learning environment which a student is treated fairly regardless of the student's characteristics, including but not limited to race, color, religion, or sex, and in which a student's ability to participate in or benefit from the services, activities, or opportunities offered is not limited or interfered with by conduct that is physically threatening, harmful, or humiliating. Oh, Jenny, do you have comment again to that one?
No, I just think it's like we're on the what we want. It's what we don't want, but it's not what we want. When you say fairly, students treated fairly, then I start asking, what does it mean to be treated fairly? It doesn't seem like that to me. Being treated fairly could be a lot of things, but it may not be conducive to learning. It may not be, so I just think it's cleaner to go, what do we want? And then if there's elements we don't want, to add those to it. So I would speak against this.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? I'm seeing none. We'll go ahead and vote on that motion.
The motion passes with 4 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Then we need to move to the next section here, I believe, which is about self-discipline. Is that right?
Before that definition of self-discipline, there's an amendment to the definition of policy seen here on line 88.
Okay, let's look at that. I overlooked that.
Yep, and I would make a motion that we on line 87, that we add "and other appropriate measurements." I know well, anyways, I guess I can speak to it, but I don't need a second.
Yeah, no, there's no
Right.
it's here. So
You want me to speak to that?
oh, excuse me. Yeah, let's get to where we are back on the screen so we can see that in context. I guess. And then, yeah, tell us, Jenny, what you're doing, and we'll see if we can see.
Yeah, so I previously had outlined several other items within there. A number of board members said it just needs to be other appropriate measurements because you can't possibly list the different items that could be included in this. And with the intent is to make sure we're not limiting to our to only the school's climate survey as a mechanism. And that was one of the things that was spoken to in the public comment, is the concern with the overuse of those climate surveys versus other data points. And so the addition of this section would be for other appropriate measures, not limiting those nor directing those.
Okay. Can you help me, Jenny? What would some of those other appropriate measures be? What are some examples?
Well, it could be discipline reports. It could even be actual engagement that teachers have had or other professionals in the school. It could be counselors sharing what they've experienced. I mean, there's a number of options. Those are just some of those.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get that motion out there then. So the motion is to add "and other appropriate measures" to lines 86 and 87 and 88. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Okay. Laura, please.
So with the appropriateness of this would have to be that it's the climate plus other appropriate. Is that right, Jenny? Is that your thought process instead of not using "or"?
Yes, it wouldn't be "or."
Okay. So the "and" means the climate survey would be included, and then they could take any other appropriate measures. Okay.
And I think it has to, the climate survey already within law is included there.
Yeah.
So it can't be one or the other, so it wouldn't be appropriate.
Can't exclude that.
Yep.
I don't see any other hands, so we're going to go ahead and vote on this one. Please go ahead.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Andrea. Okay, let's move to the next one.
Okay, the next one is definition of self-discipline. And I propose that we strike the definition that's there and add developing the ability to manage a person's thoughts, emotions, and behavior and take personal responsibility for their actions.
Okay, so the motion is that we adopt the definition of self-discipline on lines 114 and 115. To say self-discipline means developing the ability to manage one's own thoughts, emotions, or behavior and take personal responsibility for one's actions. And I think we had a couple of other definitions that have been proposed. Is that right? I think I may have sent one in too. It's been a month ago. Do we have those? There we go. I'm not sure how to see that large enough to be able to read it. Let me see. Oh, thank you. That's helpful. So here's some other definitions that may be considered conscious control that's oriented towards successful outcomes by overcoming obstacles or impediments, or the ability to suppress impulsive or negative behaviors through a conscious effort to accomplish a higher goal. And then the definition that we have here is developing the ability to manage one's own thoughts, emotions, or behavior and take personal responsibility for one's actions. Okay, any comments to those definitions? Laura, please.
Where did these originate? That would be helpful. I could see where one was, but not the others.
Okay.
I originally, and I'm looking right now, Laura, I think Franklin Covey is where I pulled mine off of, but I'm looking to confirm that right now, so.
I don't know if I cited those other two. Having a hard time getting back to that email that was sent. Let's see. Sorry, Laura. It's a good question. We should have been able to answer that easily, and I don't know that we're doing that. So I think that first definition comes from the Berkeley Wellbeing Institute, and it's from a research paper that was part of some research on self-discipline. The second one
Chair, this is Janet. May I just make a comment while there's a little lull?
Yes, please. I'd appreciate it if you could help us.
I don't know if it's helpful, but I think the definition that's on lines 114 and 115 is fine. Jenny's amendment tweaks that, just that language just a little bit. I'm fine with either one of those. And I think that is preferable to the others that we have on the other page. I think this is direct, simple, easily understood, and to the point. So that's just an expression of my preference. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I'm going to back into her and say I agree with her comments.
All right. Thanks, Laura. Are we ready to vote then? Brent's got his thumbs up. So I think the motion before the committee is that we define self-discipline on lines 114 and 115 as developing the ability to manage one's own thoughts, emotions, or behavior, take personal responsibility for one's actions. Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
That motion passes with 4 in favor and 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Andrea. And
Okay, next motion
next
is
one.
on, I have 136 here, but I don't know if that's, so it'd be 144 on your document. It would be adding through strategies promoting positive engagement between staff, students, and parents. And this is in relation to LEA, let's see, developing plans, and LEA shall include as part of the plan parental outreach and education regarding the plan and how it will provide discrimination and harassment-free environment. And this is through strategies promoting positive engagement between staff.
Hold on just one second, Jenny. I think that I asked a question earlier
Oh,
on
sorry.
the motion that came from the board. And are we within that motion with what we're doing here still? Okay.
We are.
All right. Very good. Appreciate it. So this is the final one then?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So the motion is to add on 144 and 145 the words through strategies promoting positive engagement between staff, students, and parents. And this is the plan to provide a discrimination and harassment-free environment. Okay, any comments to this one? Seeing none, we can go ahead and vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay,
Thank you, Jeff.
thank you. Appreciate the help. And that will move us on to the next item on our agenda, which is school improvement, implementation of School Turnaround Leadership Development Act. So this is item number 7.
Chair, point of order. Do we need to approve this whole thing now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Jeff's nodding his head up and down. I didn't mean to get ahead of ourselves.
I would like to make that motion
Motion, okay.
to approve R 277-469 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, motion is before the committee to approve R 277-609 draft 1 as amended on the first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for keeping me in line. Jumping ahead too quickly.
I need help all the time when I'm chairing.
Just trying to get to the end of that agenda and the clock just keeps ticking. So we'll keep moving things forward, but I see Tracy's here. So please help us with item number 7, Tracy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Tracy Vandeventer, Director of the Center for Continuous School Improvement, and I am happy to return back to just touch base on R 277-920, and I have Deputy Superintendent Angie Stallings here with me as well. And I believe that the first point of order here, or the point we want to make, is that really we're just tweaking a few things to make them more clear as we're looking at our second draft of this of these changes. The intention is to just make sure that no matter who is looking through this, that there's no pieces left unmentioned or leaving out references that need to be in place. So I will let Angie speak specifically to the first, I believe, on line 115, the first change. And we apologize, it's not in blue text. I think actually there's a change to the title also on 115.
Chair, would you like me to go through the draft?
Yes, if you could, please, that would be helpful.
Yes, thank you. Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent Policy. Happy to be here. I think my second time today. I've been in all 3 committees today, so I had to take a minute to remember if I'd been here. And Tracy is correct. The reason why some of the language is not in blue and red is there was a draft 1. So anything that was in draft 1 is just going to be in black language and underlined. So this is new language. The only thing that will be in blue or red is something that was amended and is part of draft 2 that wasn't in draft 1. So I wanted to remind the committee about the difference between language like this that is underlined versus if it's in red or blue. So as Tracy stated, since this rule was recently updated and took effect on October 10th, and there were just a couple of things that we identified that we missed and that could use additional clarification. The first thing is, you'll remember, I believe it was last month, on the consent calendar, you approved the Elevate Schools for participation. That is a voluntary program, and I believe every single school that applied was selected. And we wondered if the board would like to delegate that authority for the superintendent to identify the Elevate schools, since really it is a voluntary program. It's not like the Springboard schools where those are designated. And this would make it so that in future years, you wouldn't necessarily need to approve them. We could put them on the consent calendar as information, but this would allow the superintendent to identify them based on the application and then move forward. So I'll move through all three if you'd like, Chair Hansen, and then we can discuss your questions if you'd like. Is that what you'd prefer, Board Member?
Yeah, that will be fine. I think that'll be
perfect. There's only two more. The other two, one is on line 366. Close your eyes right now if you get sick from scrolling. On line 366, you'll see the change from a local school board to an LEA to make that broader. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to the discussion you've been having today about whether the board has to do something or staff, or they can delegate it. By stating an LEA in general, it allows that district or charter school to determine if they want the board members to develop those recommendations, or if they want staff to develop those recommendations and then have them approved by the board. There was some confusion that it was the actual board members that needed to develop the recommendations versus staff, and then having, staff develop them, but then the board approve them. So we recommend this change to LEA to be broader and allow each local governing board to determine what that procedure will look like. And then the last one is on 373 through 374. When recently we were talking about the exit criteria for, I can't remember if it was the Springboard schools, but a question came up about whether exit criteria for critical needs status or a nod to the more rigorous interventions need to be included in board rule. How schools in critical needs status are handled is all lined out, is provided for in the ESSA state plan, which is incorporated by reference into this rule. Instead of restating everything in R277-920 that is already in the ESSA state plan, we recommend that there's a statement here to make it very clear that a school in critical needs status that does not exit critical need status shall engage in more rigorous interventions as required and described in the ESSA state plan. So those are the three changes. And if Director Van Deventer would like to add anything or correct anything I said, I welcome that, but would turn it back to you, Chair, for any questions or what the committee would like.
Sorry. Tracy, anything to add before we go to questions?
Yes, Chair. One thing, I just want to make sure that the board remembers that critical needs status, as outlined in the definitions, is the language used in our rule for CSI schools, both for low grade and low performance. So when we're referring to the critical needs status, we're referring to those schools that are identified as CSI schools.
Okay, thank you. Janet, please, and then Jenny.
Thank you. As I looked through this, I just had a question on the lines 373 and 374 about the critical needs and critical needs. That's a federal designation, correct? Tracy?
Chair, if I may?
Yes, please.
Yes, the critical needs status is the language we use to reference what is now called comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI schools, and that is the federal designation.
Okay, so I think as a board member, I have a concern that a school in critical needs status not exiting, and kind of the same concern with those schools that are in turnaround and really not succeeding. Is there anywhere that we have an option as a state board to close a school that is just continually not serving students well?
Tracy, please.
Yes, there is. Board Member Cannon, I'm sorry I don't have reference to the exact line where that's at, but there is a long list of considerations when you're considering more rigorous options. I believe it is part of section 12 of the rule here. It's restated, and that is one of the options. It could also include changing a district school to a charter school, or having a charter school become a district school, or it could be that they have to have a change in leadership. There's a number of options, and then the final option that is listed, very good, thank you very much. Their final option is other, and often that has been the choice that has been made in the past, is to take into consideration the unique needs of the school, how far they've made as far as progress in regards to their school improvement plan, and then that has weighed in on the decisions previously. But that is exactly where on the screen you can see where there is a list of possibilities when they are considering more rigorous options.
And that consideration would be by the local school board?
The local school board and the LEA would make recommendations. They would weigh in and they would provide what they believe would be best. There is an exit review panel that will review and hear what those recommendations are and participate in dialogue, and if you will, on taking in that information and then reviewing the school improvement plan, the school's progress, how close they were to exiting, taking in all those factors. And then once that's completed, there would be a set of recommendations that would be presented on whether the board would. And you can see from lines 332 to the other actions what those recommendations would be.
To your knowledge, has this ever been enacted?
Meaning, have there been more rigorous options?
Yeah, has anyone ever gone like transferring the teachers out and
I don't believe that that has happened in the last 5 years. I believe 15 years ago that was more of an option that was considered under Leave No Child Behind and the School Improvement Grant, SIG schools that were part of the federal program. So I think that there was more emphasis on closing school or transformation. I know some local school boards have actually made the decision to have more ambitious, if you will, changes. So I'm thinking of Ogden District, for instance, that had James Madison Elementary as a turnaround school, and that school district required every employee to reapply for the position, and some were allowed to continue working at that school and some were transferred to other schools. So they had a complete change of all of their employees in that building. And of course, some districts we know have made changes or closed schools on their own, but that didn't come as a result that I'm aware of from the state board's recommendations, but instead it came from the LEA themselves, recognizing that they had some changes that they felt were going to be best and had moved forward with some of those options.
Okay, thank you. I'm aware of local boards closing schools, but it's usually for a lack of population or a shift in population where the school doesn't have sufficient numbers to keep it open. And I just would like to know that there's an option there if a school is just continually not performing or serving students well, that there's an option to close that school. So thank you for the information, Tracy.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Janet. We'll go to you, Member Earl.
Yes, in our ESSA plan, and I think that's why we added, let me get back to my page, down at 374, where we were previously, that language in blue. We just funded, if I remember correctly yesterday, right, an organization to do the root causes. Is this correlated to this?
Chair, if I may?
Yeah.
They will, that funding yesterday will be part of that root cause analysis. So we have two forms that we'll be using. One, yes, the contracts that will be that have just recently been approved to provide each school with a consultant that will come with a team to analyze all, the program and observe classrooms and provide very concrete and specific feedback about the practice. But we also yesterday approved the Four Domains call, which is an additional ongoing review of practices, of educator practices within the building that can happen each year. So both of those will weigh in on identifying what those critical needs are. What are those specific improvement needs, if you will, to be able to reach the goal of exiting the designation.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking that is we've previously had problems when we've had outside entities coming in. Have we structured this in such a way that it avoids those previous issues that we were having, or do we anticipate that continuing?
That's a great question. And I believe we have made some changes that will avoid some of the challenges we've had before. What I think has helped us in this section moving forward is we actually have more staff that will be participating side by side with those consultants that will be going to the school to make sure that they truly are following through with all the expectations that are laid out in our handbook. So it's not sufficient for you to visit one classroom and to consider that to be the analysis of all teachers within that building, but instead we have that expectation you would visit all of the classrooms and that you would have all of the stakeholder feedback sessions, and you would include all of the opportunities to get information from focus groups, for instance. So we think that in the past that maybe hasn't been as robust as our standards are. So we've done two things. One, we have more staff that we believe will be joining those consultants as they go through that process. But two, we've also revised the handbook and tried very clearly, not only in the handbook to say these are the base expectations, but also within our contracting, we've made it very clear to you are not allowed to bring in your own tools, if you will. You're not allowed to make it, what you want it to be as far as a consultant for the designing how you would do this. Instead, you have to use the materials that we have, and this is the base expectation. So I believe we will avoid that in the future.
I know that was a big concern coming out of some of these schools that have gone through this process, is that they felt like the root causes were not, you know what I mean? It didn't correlate with their mission or something. So I just wanted to make sure we're not replicating what we've previously had problems with before. And then just one last question. Understanding that they realize these schools are in critical need status, right? I guess I would hope we're trying to be cohesive with our working with them, and instead of this looking more like an audit, so to speak, or an accreditation, but an actual beneficiary workable relationship, right? A systems type of a thing where we're helping the whole system in that school. And is that what you, I guess that's what I'm wondering is, are we anticipating that?
Yes, and I also want to add that it's been added into the cycle of review, if you will. We have progress monitoring that takes place so that there is a very clear step every year where we ask for feedback about the process and the support, and we invite them to make changes to their plan, so that if it turns out that they thought this was a root cause analysis, but they have discovered evidence or data that might indicate otherwise, that they can make adjustments along the way to really truly hone into where they believe those biggest levers are in that school improvement. So we did not have that on a yearly basis as a way or as a tool to make big shifts if necessary, and that is part of the discussion on a yearly basis with the consultant involved as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was just a concern I had.
Okay, thank you everyone for the questions and the answers. Tracy, we've kept you hopping. I'm ready to entertain a motion on this one, if someone would like to make that. I'll make the motion.
Okay. Okay.
That the committee approve R277-920 draft 2 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Any further comment or questions to that motion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote.
That vote passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. That moves us on to CTE, which is number 8 on our list. And I see Talia here chomping at the bit, ready to go on this one, huh? All right, please, Talia, go ahead.
We are ready. My name is Talia Longhurst. I'm the Director of Career and Technical Education here at USBE. Happy November to everyone. When you see the month of November come up, you know that CT will be coming to your committee for approval of our annual course revisions. So just a reminder, the process for approving and revising CT courses is a little bit different. We have a board approved process that we follow. We have a calendar that's included in your backup documentation, and about a quarter, roughly a quarter of our courses are reviewed annually, and you'll see that calendar there. And we meet with a team of subject matter experts, post-secondary partners, industry partners to review existing course standards, make any updates that are necessary. And then also as we develop new programs, new courses, you'll see those in your list of courses to approve. And so we bring those to committee in November, ask you to send those to full board, and you'll see those again next month, hopefully, as we make it through today. In September of every year, the board, through the consent calendar process, approves our pathways for the following school years. The courses that you see today are the courses that make up the pathways that you've seen earlier in the year. So again, our courses every 3 to 4 years undergo review, and what you're seeing today are courses broken out by the pathways, the clusters that we have, and you can click on any of those. If you haven't looked at these prior to today, you can click on any of those. Each one will take you to a summary of the changes that have been made in the courses within that cluster, so that you can go through there. Chair, I know that Board Member Earl sent us earlier this week some suggestions. Staff have taken time to review those. We can move fairly quickly, I think, through those. Most of those were very welcome changes that we're happy to accommodate. However you'd like us to move forward on this.
Yeah, I think we'd just like to move one at a time on those. And if there are any other changes or questions, we'll address those. But Jenny, do you just want to walk us through your?
Yep. If we go to page 32, I just have a question of cost associated with overemphasis on EPA rewarding companies versus energy efficiency versus consumer purchasing superior products. I don't know if there was a wording or some way that maybe a suggestion that you guys might have to tidy that up a little bit.
Absolutely. And let me, if I may, Chair, let me just point out that all of our staff who worked on these standards are here and ready to answer any questions that you have. For ease of time, I might just jump in, since we've met this week and looked at these, and just kind of summarize what the staff have suggested to some of these recommendations. And then staff, if you feel like I haven't covered something appropriately, please feel free to jump in, introduce yourself, and correct me. But they did give me some talking points. So in the interest of time, I'm going to do that for them. So with regard to the suggestion on page 32, Lola, our specialist over this particular course, will add a bullet point in talking about purchasing products that are designed efficiently. And I think the thing that's important to point out is this course is not just centered around home interior design, but also commercial, medical buildings, all kinds of different things. But we will add in a bullet point talking about that particular point.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to vote on that, but I'm good with that.
Okay, we will need to vote all the way through, but I had a question on this one. So Energy Star program awards companies who have minimized the amount of power or water savings in their dishwashers. I think that's supposed to be maximized, the savings.
The amount of power, it's minimizing the amount of power and water. I think it says
power or water savings. And so we want to maximize the savings, not minimize it, I believe.
But you don't.
Yeah, let's let Talia answer that one and see if that's the right meaning or not.
I only know enough about this topic to be dangerous, so if it's okay, I'll tag in Lola Ship, our specialist over this course.
That's fine. I just read that to say minimize the power or water savings, and that didn't sit right.
Thank you. I'm Lola Ship, the specialist. So Scott, you are completely right. It's a double negative. So you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. I think we do need to change that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So can we just incorporate that, Jenny, into the change that you have?
Yeah, sure. That would be great.
Okay, so we can see that on the screen. We just have a a motion to change Strand 5 Standard 1 to add a bullet about efficient equipment and to change minimize to maximize. Is that enough direction?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any other comments to that? Not seeing any hands. Let's go ahead and vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. We'll move
Okay,
to
number 2 is page 142 and under blockchain, just adding the benefits, but adding the word risks. And I don't know if there is a comment to that, but that's what I'd recommend.
If I may, that was a very welcome change. We've checked with industry partners. They very much agree with you. This is a great point to include, and we will make a change to that standard to include risks as well as benefits.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we add risks on to blockchain on page 142.
Okay, the motion for the committee is that we add risks on the discussion of blockchain on page 142.
Benefits is already there, just so we.
Right, so it's just a balanced look at blockchain. Okay, please, committee members, go ahead and vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Next,
on page 214, I'm having to slide down to it. Just there's a video there that focuses on, sorry, I don't have all my detail in front of me. 214.
this is the ACEs video.
No, this is a video. Is it focused on ACEs? I thought it was more trauma
I think
type
that was
of
a
things, brain.
TED talk on ACEs. I think that's the one I looked at, the YouTube video.
Maybe so. Let me get to the page.
So this one is
Brain
about
development.
caregiving. Yep, caregiving, societal roles and responsibilities.
It had to do with brain development, childhood experiences, but I in place of that, where we're introducing the importance there of childhood, I actually have just recommended 2 other videos, and I just looking for feedback on what your staff.
So our staff suggestion was maybe we should just remove all of the video links and let the teachers use resources that they find appropriate for teaching these standards.
Actually, I would think that would be appropriate. So
yeah. So Leah, can you just comment on how these were selected in the first place? I mean, I hate to throw out a recommendation personally from the committee that put these together. How were these selected in the first place?
Again, I'll tag in Lola Ship.
Hi, I'm Lola. These were selected and given as suggestions from our post-secondary partners and from our Head Start, our industry partners as well.
Okay. So I guess the motion for the committee is to delete all of the video links on 214. Is that right?
yeah, on that particular area.
Okay, any other comments from committee members? Not seeing any. Let's go ahead and vote.
We have the motion passes with 3 approvals and 2 opposition.
Okay, the next motion is on that same, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Same page, under, we just need to remove UNICEF's rights of a child. This is not Utah law or, I don't know what your suggestion is. I suggest we add in Utah law there, and I could give some actual references in place of the rights of a child using international organizations to define this particular area.
Okay, Jenny, was there something objectionable to the actual the child that UNICEF has come up with?
Yeah, just the placement of children almost pitted against their parents, kind of a thing. That we can go through and read through all those if you'd like me to.
No, I did read through them, and I didn't see anything that I found to be terribly objectionable there. So
Why would we, I just don't understand why we would use an international organization to define the rights of children when we should be using Utah law. So.
Okay, Laura, please.
So Talia, what was the take from industry on this one and or your office, please?
Yes, if I may, Chair.
Sure.
So we feel very strongly that something needs to be in there about the rights of children, that a caregiver has an obligation to treat all children with respect and dignity. What we can do is take out the link and remove the reference to the United Nations of International Children, which is what that reference is to, and put in a more generic objective about evaluating the rights of children and the obligation that caregivers have to honor those rights.
So can we put in Utah law? Or is that something objectionable to doing that? And I mean, that's something that could be moved forward. Could we just put in Utah law there?
Jenny, if there's specific Utah law.
Yep, I do have.
And then we could get that.
Yep, you give me just a second.
Leah, how was this UNICEF document selected?
Yep, again, let me tag Lola in to answer that question.
Okay.
So that's actually through the same process as before, through our industry partners and our post-secondary partners. The UNICEF reference is a way that it's organized and a way for teachers to understand a little bit easier the rights of a child, but I do welcome any other resources, especially Utah resources.
Okay.
So I could do the division responsibility. I mean, there's a couple of areas.
Jenny, just 1 second before we go to that. Can you just put the UNICEF document up on the screen for us so that we know what we're talking about?
Patty, you can just click on that hyperlink. So that very first document right there under attachments.
Is this it?
Yes, it's correct.
That's the one we were looking at. So it just goes through and talks about various rights of a child to have care and to not be abused and things like that is what I saw.
Well, and it's
you're finding something objectionable in this.
Yeah, the governments are giving permission for parents to do things. I mean, that's what the whole document's about. The government saying you're allowed to do this. The government saying you're allowed to do that. Even under religion, if I can find that one, it's interesting. Children have a right to get information. This is back to like your American Library Association's belief system that they have a right to access all these different things. Really, it minimizes parents and the role that parents play. So governments must protect children throughout the document. So I would recommend we use Utah law. I'm not sure why we would not do that.
Okay. Let's make the motion.
Okay, I recommend that we use Utah law in this particular area. And if you want several places, we can either go to directly to section 82A 201, which talks about parents' rights and responsibilities there. And then at what point the state can get involved. Could even do under division responsibilities when it comes to our social services. It talks about a child who comes into care under this chapter is entitled to participate in age-appropriate activities for the child's emotional well-being and development. And it just talks that they would do the same as a parent if they take on that caregiver's role. And that's under another section. If you'd like that, I can give that too. I just think these are better places to reference. And we have specific laws when it comes to caregiving, when it comes to child services and such in the state of Utah. I don't have all those pulled up, but I'd be happy to work with whoever on getting those pulled up.
I think we need a specific motion to how we're going to change this, or else we'll have to bring it back. We need to know what we're going to do. So.
Well, what we're going to do, I think, would be including Utah law. That was my suggestion. But if you want the exact wording, I don't know. I would prefer to work with someone on that. But if you want to, we can just reference several laws.
Yep, let's, I've got board member Straight with his hand up, and I'm looking at the time too, and I'm just not sure we're going to make it with this. But I don't know if we can just give general reference Utah law direction. That's not enough to let staff want.
We could and bring it and then make those changes if necessary at the board meeting, though. We could give general recommendation on this one. I don't see any reason why that would hamper the moving
forward. Go to member Straight right now. Go ahead, Brent.
Well, I don't want to keep laboring this because I feel like I need more information. We also have federal law. So I'm wondering if this is complete, and I'm uncertain. Are we removing the other and replacing it with state law, or are we saying that if the other information conflicts with state law, then state law takes precedence, but federal law would then take precedence over state law? So I'm not quite sure where all this goes.
Well, UNICEF is neither state nor federal law. It's international UN lingo.
Well, that may be true, but if it isn't in conflict with state and federal law, then, I mean, you can say that about any standard, any strand.
Okay, let's bring this back to a motion. That's the difficulty that I'm having.
I make a motion on standard 2. On standard 2 that we use Utah and state law in articulating the rights of children. I don't know that we have to go beyond that, but. Okay. And I specifically 80-2A-201 could be used as a resource.
Okay, we have a motion before the committee that on page 214, standard 2, remove the UNICEF reference and resource link and replace the reference and resources with a link to Utah code in articulating the rights of children. For example, 80-2A-201. Okay, committee members, any other discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
I just want to say that this does not mean that I'm against state law.
Okay.
I need a vote from Janet.
I know Janet is just wondering would it be possible to reference UNICEF and Utah state law?
Yeah, if we've got to deal with this motion, and if you wanted to bring another motion, you can certainly do that.
Then I'm going to change my vote.
The motion doesn't pass with 4 against and 1 for.
Okay, Janet, we'll come back to you. Do you have another?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we leave the UNICEF reference, but in addition include a reference to Utah state law that Jenny has just given us.
So we have a motion before the committee that we include the UNICEF reference and also include a link to Utah code articulating the rights of children. I think I got that almost right. Is that okay, Janet?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Committee members, let's go ahead and vote.
And that motion passes with a 4, 4 and 1 opposed.
Okay, thank you. Jenny, let's go to the next one. We can go.
Okay, the next one
We'll try and
is,
get this CTE item done.
sure, I know, page 242. I'm just asking that we change the word equitable. It's equitable community of learning to developmentally appropriate community of learning. So exchanging out equitable for developmentally appropriate.
Okay, may I ask, is there an issue with the word equitable?
Yep.
What's the issue?
I just think developmentally appropriate is what we want in our communities, and that would be appropriate for all children.
Okay. And I guess remind the committee, we have a definition of educational equity, which talks about resources and getting the children what they need to learn. Is that, and you're saying developmentally appropriate is more appropriate in this area, is that right, Jenny?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, very good. We have a motion before the committee that we will replace the word equitable with developmentally appropriate on page 242. Please go ahead and vote.
The motion fails with 4 against and 2 yeses.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. Next one then.
Clarification, that equals 6. So was it 3 and 2 or was it 4 and 1?
You just said 4.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, just trying to clarify here.
3, 2.
3, yeah, 3 and 2.
Okay, sorry. Okay, next one.
Okay. Sorry, let me get, so the next one would be, it says establishing partnership. I think it's on the same page, 242. Exchange out partnership with and replace with supportive. So establishing a supportive relationship with families. And once again, this follows closer to state law. We support families in the education system.
Okay, and so fundamental problem with the word partnership.
Yeah, yep. It just is, we are a supportive role.
Well, and I'll just comment, assuming that the parents are acting in a good direction, then we would be supportive, but that may not always be the case.
So then would it be changed to partnership or would that be in place of parents? I think it's still supportive, but.
Okay. Let's go ahead. If there are no more comments, we have a motion to, on page 242, exchange the word partnership with supportive. Please go ahead and vote.
The motion fails with 4 against and 1 supportive.
Okay, on page 243, it said space should be inclusive, and then it articulates specific items. I'm all for it being inclusive. Let me get to my page so I can see too.
Yeah, let's be able to see where that is.
Yeah, I got too many links open now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking for that word on that page and I'm not finding it yet.
Give me just 1 second.
Is it? And it's 243? Talking about this.
My apologies. Let me look back and see what I have here.
Oh, I see.
So I have 243. Yeah.
Standard three, about halfway down. That it, the space should be inclusive?
Yes. I just think we strike in multicultural, non-sexist, differing abilities. Like we're saying inclusive, but then we're inclusive in some areas. You know, so we're giving, here's what we want you to look for instead of inclusive through books. Space will be inclusive. I'm all for inclusive, but we're outlining what we want that to look like.
Okay, member Straight.
How many more of these amendments do we have?
I don't know. Member Earl?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.
Okay. Member Straight?
Can we table this next meeting? That's,
We're trying to get the item complete if we can.
well, that'd be great, but okay. At the cost of what?
At the cost of delaying this for another month. So we'll just try to move quickly through the votes on this, and I think we'll try to be efficient here. If there's no discussion anyone wants to make, we'll go ahead. So here, the motion is to strike multicultural, non-sexist, and differing abilities from 243. I don't see any hands up to speak about that, so we'll go ahead and vote. And let's queue up the next one.
Okay, 246.
So Andrea, okay, you got 4-1 on that one. Okay, 246, page 246.
Yep. Let me get to where it's at. So in place of culturally relevant and inclusive of children that make up the learning community, still strike that and add provide materials that honor children's family culture and maintain a respectful attitude towards others.
Okay. Trying to find this one. I'm sorry, culturally relevant. That's what we're.
Could you repeat the motion?
Yes, it's so it would be strike culturally relevant and inclusive of children that make up the learning community and adding provide materials that honor children's family culture and maintain a respectful attitude towards others. In other words, we're articulating more of what we mean by culturally relevant.
Okay. Any discussion to that? Okay, we have a motion to strike culturally relevant and let's see, and inclusive, and replace that with, I don't have that language right now.
Could you repeat what we're replacing it with? Sorry.
Yes, that's all right. Provide materials that honor children. That's it right there. Whoever just put that in.
Okay. Okay, that's the motion. Can I just ask, we just don't want to use the word inclusive, Annie? Is that, I just see it being edited out here like you did a search and replace or something on this.
I didn't do a search and replace, but I did read through all the content, and these are areas. It's interesting that inclusive continues to be used as if it's an exclusionary process, as if we're excluding some, so we have to put inclusive in. So that's why the language is articulated in a more thoughtful process, I think, here. This is exactly what we're saying, unless we're not saying this. Maybe we're saying something else, but I think it is honoring a family's culture and maintaining a respectful attitude towards others, which would signify all.
Okay. Any other comment to the motion? Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion fails 3-2.
Page 246.
Okay. That's where we are now, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Sorry, just looking at my notes. Just striking affirming.
And I'm sorry, what are we?
Yes, and I. Sorry, not having a page number.
Yeah. I'm on 246.
Well, it should say, Provide positive, affirming, and supportive feedback to students. That's the language.
Okay.
And I'm trying to understand how affirming is different than supportive and why affirming is used. So if there's maybe an answer to that. Well, there it is, right there. It's at the top of the page. It's embed opportunities throughout the day to provide positive, affirming, and supportive feedback to children. So what does that affirming mean? And how is that different than positive and supportive?
Okay.
What are we affirming, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So Leah, if you could help us with that.
Again, let me defer to Lola, please.
Okay.
Hi, Lola. Affirming, this is just how we talk to children. We're talking about children who are 2 and 3 years old, affirming that their choices are validated, and that's what that means. But I can see also how it is positive and supportive of their choices. So
Okay.
it's up to the board.
Sounds good. We'll go ahead then and vote on that. So the motion is to remove the word affirming, Jenny, is that?
That would be accurate.
Okay, so to remove the word affirming, so just positive and supportive feedback to children. Okay, committee members, go ahead and vote on that.
The motion fails with 4 against and, or 4 against and 1 in favor.
Okay.
Page 257. And it would be change cultural expectations to family expectations.
Okay.
And once again, it's this is preschoolers, right?
Okay. The motion is that we on page 257 replace cultural expectations with family expectations. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
That motion fails with 2 in favor and 3 opposed.
Page 258 it refers to UDL. When I looked up the link that's on here, they're in the process of changing their standards to they're rising to equity. For other organizations that have done this same thing, it begins to get into the social justice element. And I suggest that whatever UDL we're using, that we put those specific components into our language here and not just reference a site to go to. And primarily because I just don't know as a board member what that will reference in the future when we add that link in there.
Okay, so if I understand, Jenny, so I looked at the UDL website and they have engagement, representation, action and expression, have different areas and then different ways of teaching, I guess, in those areas. All that looked fairly benign, I guess.
Yep, I had no problems with that, but we're
So
referencing, yeah.
You just want to lock that in place somehow by referencing their framework. It's the Universal Design for Learning Guidelines.
Yes.
Okay.
And exactness to it because they're in the process of changing some of their stuff. And I looked down through it too. I thought it was, it's well done.
Okay, so I think we run into this problem in many different contexts, and it's probably is best practice to have a PDF or something of whatever we're referencing and go to that where the websites can be in flux.
Can I make that recommendation then that we have a, is that?
Fine, whatever your motion wants to be. I think the point for me is well taken. I mean, we don't want to have a link that goes to something that's different next week than it was the week that we approved it. I thought that it was helpful, the stuff that's there right now. So
I would agree.
Okay, let's come up with a motion then that helps us to do.
I would recommend that we make a PDF of the content that we, I don't, what value or that we're going to use, or we feel is important for the usage, so that educators can go right to that resource.
And let me go to staff and ask if we're creating headaches for them. Is that Lola? Are you the best to address this?
This is a different course, and so it's a different specialist. I
Okay.
think we would be happy to include the chart or information from that chart that exists today as an addendum to this particular strand and standard.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's go ahead then. The motion before the board is that we strike the reference to UDL on 258 and instead include a static PDF document of the resource to be used. Let's go ahead and vote on that.
And that motion passed unanimously. There we go. Canon, yes, thank you.
Okay,
Very
page
good.
308, when it's talking about ACEs, I would ask that we reference two other research articles. One is on the counter ACEs, and then the article from the research from preventative medicine around ACEs. And it talks about the misuse as well as the proper use of the ACEs. So, and I don't know, Talia, if there's someone who wanted to comment on that from your team.
Chair, if I may, we are back to
Yes.
Lola again. I think this is something that we can easily do, but I'll let Lola speak.
Okay.
Just speaking to that, I think this would be a great change to add in some references to preventative medicine and counter ACEs.
Okay, can I ask Lola, I did see on that standard 4, we talk about ACEs up at the top, and then we get into protective factors, resilience, individual, family, community resources. Is that what we're talking about when we get to the counter ACEs?
So it is a protective measure, but yeah, I think it would be great to include more references for our teachers and give them more resources to use in their classroom.
Okay. We got someone else coming on. Brent, is that you? I just wonder, and not, well, I don't know if the resources that Member Earl has brought are the ones that our team would select for counter ACEs, and we have a group that's working on all this stuff. So I hesitate a little bit to just take those, because I don't know what the field of resources look like for counter ACEs. Is there a way maybe that we can handle that? I don't know, Jenny.
Well, I'm happy if they, this is a recommendation I made, but I'm happy to recommend that they include research on counter ACEs. And then if, Lola and whoever's looking at this can include that.
Okay, can we do it
Yeah.
that way then? Just have a motion to include a bullet point on counter ACEs with appropriate
Yeah.
references.
Yep. Although I would ask that the preventative medicine be included.
Was that as particular link that you're,
It's a research article.
okay. Let's get a motion the way that we want it.
All right, Tanya's raising her hand. I don't know if she has input on that.
No, go ahead.
There's quite a few articles.
Chair, I would be happy to, Tanya Alverno is a coordinator for prevention and student services. I'd be happy to help with Lola and Talia and work on adding in some information so that it's consistent with what we're doing in prevention.
Okay. And I'd be more comfortable, Jenny, if we just said that we needed to include the information and let the team, pick something that's there. If we want to specify.
That's fine. That's fine. I just hope that they would consider those two articles as they're
I think-
reviewing that.
Yeah, I think of course they should look at that. You've done some work and put that in front of them. But let's look at that motion then and see if that's what you want to do. On page 308, strand 4, add a research in consultation with prevention staff at USBE we want it to say 4 counter ACEs.
Aces and counter aces.
Sorry, Brent, what was that?
Oh, there are many research articles on aces and counter aces. There's much to choose from, so.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
get the motion the way we want it though. So in consultation with prevention staff at USBE, we're gonna
For counter aces, Chair.
4 counter aces. So I think that's just 4 counter aces on the end of that. Tanya, you've still got your hand up for you.
Yes, no, I wanted to add, I would say that the better language might be positive childhood experiences rather than counter aces.
Okay,
And it would include that, but yes, that would be,
okay, positive childhood experiences.
yep, that's great.
Sounds good. I think we're there with the motion. Let's go ahead then, committee members, and vote.
Chair Straight, there we go. Passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. What do we have left, Jenny?
I have 2. I have on 312, language around consent is confusing and that we should just be using Utah law that already talks about consent within the law, what the parameters are. And I don't have that spelled out, but I can, once again, it's one of those I can look up. I did look it up earlier today, but I've already clicked it out trying to clean off my top area here.
This is 311 and 312 where it talks about consent, explicit versus implicit. Maybe we can ask the content specialist who put this together where that language came from.
So I'm sorry, Talia, can I address the board?
Yeah, please.
Okay. This is actually in an effort to not really dive too deep into consent. This strand, if you go up a little bit, you'll see that this strand is actually about unhealthy relationships, and sexual violations is a part of an unhealthy relationship. So this is an effort not to dive too deep into the laws of consent. That being said, adding in a reference to that law would be very helpful for teachers and for them to have the correct language and the correct Utah references.
Okay. So Jenny,
So, yeah.
would you be okay just with adding a reference with this language and then just say, refer to Utah code such and such where the consent language is found?
Can I ask one question? Is
Sure.
what is this class is human service, like a human services class? What is the class again?
Yes, it's human services. It's for students who may want to go into social work, or may want to be a counselor. They may want to go into that human services field. So it's looking at more what they may encounter. Each strand is a different area within human services.
Okay. I do have specific concerns with the consent language. Consent is freely given, reversible, specific, silence is not consent. And we can make another motion after this. If people don't agree, I would want that stricken and Utah law added there.
Okay.
We already addressed the issues around consent through the other components here, force, coercion, surrounding circuit anyways. And this specific consent language, I would ask that we not use it. So that would be my motion.
Let's get the motion then spelled out. Laura,
So
go
just strike the line that has consent on it there. It's freely given, reversible, specific, silence is not consent. And then put the law in place of that, a reference to the law.
Laura, please.
Jenny, would you be willing to add at the end of this, put the law, and then also in parentheses, silence is not consent?
Yeah, yep. Although that is articulated in law, but yes.
I know it is.
Yep.
Let's get the motion then the way that we want it here.
Do you have the reference to the law that you would like included?
Jeff, I clicked out of it earlier. I can find
You're
it.
fine.
I'm sorry. I was trying to clear my board from everything I had up and I clicked out and
We
it's
can
in the
grab it
juvenile
later.
justice and I can send it on.
Okay.
If I may, I do have that Utah code.
Okay.
It is 76-5-406. And you can look and see if that's the one you were referencing.
So 76 dash what?
76-5-406.
Yes, this would be the one. Yep, and it breaks it all down for ages and everything too. Yeah, and it even, which is the thing that often is cited, but not necessarily, yeah, where consent to any sexual act or prior consensual activity between or with another party does not necessarily constitute consent to any other sexual act. So it breaks down all those components in the law.
Okay. So we got it there the way that we want this. So the motion is that on page 311, 312, we strike the line, including consent is freely given, reversible. Specific silence is not consent. I think there's 2 consents there, and replace it with Utah law 76-5-406 that addresses consent. Okay,
And I think Laura wanted, and I think that would be accurate, to have silence is not consent at the end of that.
Okay.
Just in parentheses or something.
Yep. Yes, that's it.
Okay. Anything else that anyone wants to add to this one? Not seeing any hands. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion does not pass with 3 opposed and 2 in favor.
Okay, last motion is on page 316 to the protective factors to add familial relationships and religion under those.
Let's see.
So 316, just adding those 2 other items.
So familial relationships and then,
Religion.
okay. And can I looked as well at protective factors for suicide, and I saw a list that included self-esteem, cultural, religious, and personal beliefs. I don't know if that would.
I'm happy to have we want to word that. I just think we need to give it, I think those are important key things, especially when the federal government came in and did their EPI report. Religion was one of those that connectedness to religion helped in that area. And then family relationships.
Yeah, so if I can help to wordsmith,
Sure.
if we were to add self-esteem, familial relationships, and then cultural, religious, and personal beliefs.
Sure. I'm happy with that.
Those 3.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's the way I read it: self-esteem, familial relationships, cultural, religious, and personal beliefs. Cultural, religious, and personal beliefs. Okay, does that look okay, Jenny? Is that
Yep, that's fine with me.
okay? Sounds good. We are on probably our final motion of the day. For us, the motion before the committee is that on page 316 under protective factors, we will add self-esteem, familial relationships, cultural, religious, and personal beliefs. So that's 3 bullets to that list. Committee members, seeing no other comments, let's go ahead and vote. Okay.
Member Straight,
Oh, I didn't see Member Straight either. Brent? Okay, Member Straight, you still with us?
oh, he did a happy thing, so I'm guessing that's a yes. There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
unanimously, do we need one final vote though, Chair, for the, just moving
Yeah,
all the CTE forward?
I believe that we do. If somebody can help us with that.
I'll make that, Chair.
Okay, we have a motion from
Okay.
on that.
I-
Go
Are you
ahead.
okay? Okay,
Oh,
are
go
you
ahead.
okay with me?
Read it.
Okay, I move that the committee approves the CTE course standards as amended, draft one as amended and forward to the board for approval.
Okay, that's the motion before the committee. Seeing no comment or questions, no hands up, let's go ahead and vote. Member Straight,
And that motion passes with 4 yeses and 1 opposed.
okay. Very good. Thanks everyone for your help today, your attention. Appreciate you staying a little bit late so that we could get through that item on our agenda. Go ahead.
Chair
You had your hand up?
Hansen,
Yes.
can I just wanted to know, taking personal privilege right now, to recognize Michelle Rogers, if she could turn on her camera. She actually spent this entire morning with us. She is someone who has been on our writing committee for the social studies standards, and just wanted to recognize the fact that she's been here to answer questions in case we got to them, which we did not. But Michelle, thank you for attending and being here and spending your morning with us. Apologize we didn't get to those. We never know. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And there are probably others who had come for that item and we just haven't reached
Yeah,
it.
including me.
Gone as far as we can. So thank you.
So Chair, what do you want to do with these last 2 items today?
What's that?
What do you want to do with these last 2 items today?
We have 2 items there, the RFP update. If we don't do anything with them, they will just go on to our next agenda. Going out, of course, the board, I think, we do have a meeting this afternoon and the board could pull, I believe, item number 9 on this afternoon I think the agenda item that's listed there is wide enough that they could do that.
Okay, thank you.
So if there's any other motions that anyone wants to make, we can certainly entertain those. Okay, seeing none, we will sign off for the day. Thank you, everyone, for your help. Appreciate you spending this and helping us out with this. And we'll see committee members here in just a few minutes. Bye.